Critics and audiences agree.
What the hell is this place?
Only 3 letters describe they will kill you. WTF.
Splendid.
USA Today calls it bloody and bonkers.
Are you ready to die?
IGN declares it's electrifying action cinema and popcorn entertainment to the max.
How many of you are there?
It begs to be seen in a packed theater.
Please remember to clean up the blood. Wow.
They will kill you. Only in theaters March 27. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
I hate to say it, but his parents have been feeling unwell as of late, and I'm staying with them to help take care of Alex.
Oh, sounds serious.
Oh, no, it's not serious. Nothing terminal. It's just a touch of consumption.
And welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking some things in their natural state have the most vivid colors. We're talking liars. You're all despicable little liars. And we're talking chop, chop, chop. And I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking, and on that bed there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, and from that man there was a seed, and from that seed there was a boy. Oh my god.
Okay.
I love the this movie is full of bops, and the Maypole song, I rewound the scene, Joe, so I could listen to it again.
It's extremely catchy. I will confess, I'd completely forgotten that this is basically a musical.
Oh, yeah, I did not. But I confess, and I might have said this in the outro last week. So everyone, we are discussing Robin Hardy's 1973, I'm going to say cult classic. The Wicker Man. But this is a movie I watched for the first time back in that first year of the podcast when we covered the remake. Because I felt really embarrassed to be like, oh, I'm talking about the remake and I've never seen the original.
Just another sign of how far we progressed, where nowadays we're just like, oh, I don't have time to watch the other thing. Oh, never mind. I'm only doing the one movie that we're talking about this week.
Well, that just means that in the future we have to always program the original first, unless we don't care. Then what have you?
We'll see. But no, the original. I'm so excited to talk about this. And yes, folks, as I said in the outro, no, it is not May 1st. So yes, we are doing this early. We are doing this to coordinate with spring instead of May Day.
Oh, right. So is it the spring equinox?
Sure.
Solstice? It's
something.
It's one of it has to do with the moon or the sun. I'm not an astronomer, but yes, The Wicker Man. And honestly, Joe, this is not a very long film, but I do think it's a very dense film.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest who is waiting in the wings. So everyone, he is a writer, director, and producer who co-authored and edited the 2024 book Queer Horror, a film guide, and also hosts a podcast of the same name in which he, his co-editors, and contributors do a deep dive into the films they wrote about for the book. Children of the 90s may also like to know that he has written scripts for episodes of such acclaimed television classics as Disney's So Weird, Digimon Adventures, and Sabrina the Animated Series. And this I actually found really interesting. He also wrote the video segments for Men in Black Alien Attack, the theme park attraction at Universal Studios Florida, among many, many, many other things. Please welcome Sean Abley.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
I love this. As I said before we started recording, I feel like this is like all my life has come to this moment. The three of us have been sort of circling each other on the internet in the queer horror space for a long time. And so I'm so thrilled that we could make this delightful horror three-way happen.
Oh my God. Same. I feel like it's a thing where if both Joe and I lived in LA, this would have happened a lot sooner.
There is that, although I will tell you, because we're so spread out here in Los Angeles,
maybe not.
Well, that there was that old story that B. Arthur used to tell. Like, I've been trying to have lunch with Nanette Fabre for 2 years. Like, it's you just the physical distance. Even though we all have cars and it's 2026, there's just something about Los Angeles that can be kind of isolating unless you really work at it. So,
yes.
Not to say that it wouldn't have happened. I think we all would have made it happen, but that's just sort of the vibe here.
No, right. Yeah. I think when I was like in my 20s, I was really going, I'm going to go to LA one day. I'm going to go to LA. And now that I'm in my late 30s, I'm like, oh, that seems really exhausting.
It is. I got here in my late 30s, and now I'm going to turn 60 this year. Yes, it's true. Right? Mm-hmm. And so 30 years in Los Angeles, it can be, although you do sort of develop a callus to, you know that anything you're going to do, you're going to spend at least 20 minutes in your car to get there. And that feels like it's a quick trip kind of thing.
Gosh. Yeah, you change the way you live your life because you anticipate everything is so much more spread out.
That sketch on SNL is 1000% true. It is like, it's not about how many miles it is. It's about how long it takes and what freeways you're taking.
Yes. I love that.
Well, Sean, so, okay, I know that you selected The Wicker Man in the batch of episodes we sent to you, but you haven't seen this before, correct?
Yeah. So thank you for forcing me to watch it. Consent is sexy. I allowed you to do that. But
yes.
No, I had never seen it. It's one of my secret shames as a horror person that's been around for a while is I have some really notorious gaps in my viewing, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
And now that I've seen it, I'm like, I'm going to recommend it to everybody, like, Horror 101.
Well, so had you seen Neil LaBute's remake before with Nicolas Cage?
No.
You know what? You were allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's very similar in a lot of ideas, but the execution is so camptacular. So you're probably aware of it by that reputation. It is an interesting film to compare, though, because this one is so... I don't know, there's something so fascinating and complicated about this text, and then you watch the Neil LaBute one, and you think, this is Neil LaBute, sure, it's Nicolas Cage, it should be at least entertaining, and it's just a disaster piece.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Neil LaBute, I'm also a playwright, and that's kind of the other major thing that I do as a writer, is I'm a playwright. I have this whole other life that a lot of the horror people don't know about. And so Neil LaBute has been on my radar for a long time. And, he's a real tough playwright. Like, the stuff that he writes can be very difficult. And so I actually didn't realize that he wrote that film. So that would actually make me want to see it.
You wouldn't recognize, because, I think Neil LaBute, he's really good. As you said, he's very, a difficult playwright. He deals with a lot of really intense subject matter. And, there's cries of misogyny against him that I don't fully align with. But when you watch The Wicker Man, it feels so distinctly un-Neil LaBute. And you're just like, why is he going to... And Joe is right. It's very similar, except for the fact that it's not a musical. Like, all the song stuff is taken out. And then, of course, we gender flip Summer Isle. So it's Ellen Burstyn in the remake, not Christopher Lee. But... the plot's similar. We do a couple tweaks, but ultimately, I do think that movie is a failure in Nicolas Cage's performance, and I do think that LaBute's direction, more so than his writing, causes the failure of that movie.
Fascinating. Small world. I went to high school with Stacey Edwards, who was in his first movie, In the Company of Men. She played the deaf woman in that film.
What? Oh,
yeah.
God. Look, I don't know if you've seen that, Joe. It's not a horror movie.
I've seen it.
Okay, yeah. It is. Oh, boy. I would recommend that to a very select few people.
Well, I would recommend people get in a time machine and go back and watch it when it came out, because it does not pass muster today.
No.
But... I think it's peak LaBute. I think he's been chasing that film.
That high.
There's that thing that they say about filmmakers, like, the first film you make is the one you have to make, and then the second one you make is the one you want to make. And that's why the second one is so frequently not as good. And I just found In the Company of Men, we have to separate ourselves just because the people in the film are terrible, and it's exploring a really just awful set of circumstances. That doesn't mean the film is awful. It means it's an examination of that, which I think too often we forget. So
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say, because it always depends for me on whether Neil LaBute is writing or not, which, granted, he did write the Wicker Man remake, but a movie he did not write but did direct that is one of my top 10 black comedies of all time.
Nurse Betty.
But okay. So let's go through this production a bit, shall we? Because oh boy, there is a lot of stuff, and I gotta say, I'm pulling a good chunk of this from the featurettes that are on the Blu-ray that came out a couple years ago. But then a lot of this, okay, hear me out. It is from a blog called steve-p.org. And I do not know who Steve P is. He does not have an about section on his blog. But boy, oh boy, does he have source after source after source of the backstory behind The Wicker Man. So thank you, Steve P., whoever you are.
Mysterious Steve P.
So The Wicker Man began life in 1969 when English actor Christopher Lee, Canadian producer Peter Snell, and English writer Anthony Schaefer He is best known for writing the Tony Award-winning play Sleuth, by the way. They all got together and started to discuss the possibility of working on a movie project of mutual interest. And Schaefer discovered a 1967 novel called Ritual by David Penner, and together they put up £5,000 to get the rights. Schaefer was going to write it, and then I guess like halfway through the script, he was like, oh, this isn't really exciting enough to be a worthwhile production, so I'm going to give up on this, but I want to keep this kind of like folky thing going on. To which I say, you read the book. Shouldn't you have known after reading the book that it wasn't exciting enough? But whatever. Enter Robin Hardy, who was an associate of Schaefer's. He was actually recovering from cancer at this time. And he and Schaefer brainstormed some fresh ideas. And during this time, a framework was developed that ended up being very, very close to the finished movie that would become The Wicker Man.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so Wicker Man comes out in 1973, so just some like historical context. You know, this is the end of the 60s and flower power and all the hope that was kind of in that era. And then we move into Vietnam, and it's in that stage where people weren't necessarily as idealistic about things as they were in the previous decades. So their intent with the framework of the Wicker Man comprised of that collision of cultures, the questioning of the status quo, the questioning of authority, and suggesting alternative cultures and roots.
Sure. Okay.
I should point out, a lot of the stuff, like the pagan-y ritual stuff in this movie, is actually very authentic and accurate. A lot of the research was done when writing the script, and Schaefer's main research source was Sir James George Fraser's 12-volume The Golden Bough, which details how early myths, rites, and pagan beliefs have often fed into modern 20th century life. So,
nice.
With all this stuff, I mean, granted, like this isn't like adapting one particular culture. Like they looked at paganism all throughout the centuries and kind of cherry picked things from different. So they kind of made their own religion with the Samurai Oak set. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know what? The other piece of this puzzle that I was thinking of the entire time was Shirley Jackson's The Lottery.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
From 1948. Which is about a town that sacrifices someone in the end. And I thought the parallels were pretty strong. Although Shirley Jackson's isn't, I guess it is paganism in a sense.
Kind of.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it's a ritual, but I think maybe because it's a lot. Well, no, lotteries aren't necessarily a modern invention, but still.
Well, and you can have modern paganism. We should clarify, paganism is basically any kind of semi-alternative religion, but it's often founded based around practices associated with the earth and, nature, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right, and in the lottery, they're being sacrificed for, I believe, the crops.
It's always the crops.
The crops. And here's the thing: who eats corn? Corn is the most useless vegetable, and that's what they're always sacrificing people for.
Well, in this case, it's all about the apples, right?
Oh, right.
Right. Oh, that's another change the remake does. In the remake, it's honey and bees.
Yes. Hence Nicolas Cage screaming,
"Not the bees."
The bees.
Yeah. But okay, so yes, as I said, everything you see in the film is authentic, with Hardy saying that the whole series of ceremonies and details shown in the film have happened in different times and places in Britain and Western Europe, with the Wicker Man object itself being used by the Druids to burn their sacrificial victims. So, as I said, they brought them all together in one particular time and place, with the hope being that the audience would recognize an awful lot of these things as sort of little echoes from either childhood stories and nursery rhymes or things they do at various times of the year. For example, say, Christian holidays that were previously pagan feasts. It's like Easter was originally a feast of hare. At Christmas, you set up a Christmas tree because that's what the goddess Hera worshipped. Mistletoe is purely druidic. It relates to the Golden Bough, that research book. Hardy notes, when you decorate your home for Christmas, you are using nearly every pagan symbol that there is.
Right. And nowadays we just say, oh, only Halloween is a pagan celebration.
Well, it's evil.
Right. And let's not forget the war on Christmas. The war on Christmas.
Well, isn't that just a war on Christianity, which, of course, paganism is typically posed in opposition to?
Right. Yes. The war on this pagan holiday that you've decided means Jesus.
Yes, exactly that.
We will get into it because, I feel safe saying that for most of this movie, maybe all of this movie, I don't know, you're on the side of the Islanders.
Oh, sure. Howie is one of the most despicable horror characters in history. I think nobody Nobody likes this character.
No, it's like the beginning of ACAB. Like, all cops are bad, especially that cop. He's terrible. He comes in with a shitty attitude from minute one.
Minute one, so judgmental. And that's the thing. I mean, this film is almost timeless in that respect. Like, it is, like, the themes that this movie is dealing with are very much still relevant today, possibly even more so.
Yeah. I will say, I do think, Sean, you should let us know, do you identify as Christian? Because I fear that this episode could come off as very anti-Christian.
No. Firmly agnostic. Agnostic. I was raised Catholic, and then when the Catholic Church gave my parents an annulment when I was 17 and my brothers were, I think, 13 and 12, and an annulment is basically saying that the marriage didn't exist.
Yeah, it wasn't consummated.
Right, and thus we were bastard children. I was like, wait a minute, this you're not even following your own rules.
Yeah.
I've been lied to the whole time.
I think it's a thing where, and maybe this movie is kind of teaching me this, but I was also raised Catholic. I consider myself agnostic now, but it's a thing where, I just treat Christianity like any other religion. I respect the beliefs, I just don't necessarily believe it myself. But, like, to me, the beliefs of Christianity are, on the same level of believability as the rituals they're doing in this movie.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. My husband is atheist. He grew up evangelical and is now, like, firmly atheist. And I just, it's less the, like, rules of the religion and more how it's implemented, the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, and how religion basically destroys everything in the name of it. I mean, we're watching it happen right now. So not a fan. So I am firmly, like, I'm pro the island. Pro the island in this movie.
I just think it's really hard to watch this movie and, our sole character who identifies as Christian is also low-key the antagonist / villain of the film. He happens to also be the protagonist, which is baffling in a lot of different ways. But you're just, he shows up and you think, oh, this guy sucks. And then he just keeps talking about, the letter of God and how he's an authority figure and he must be believed and obeyed. And you're just like, wow. I do legitimately think this movie is distinctly anti-Christian.
If I were to put on my dramaturgical hat, which I try to do as much as possible since I paid for my fancy MFA.
Do it.
I would say that the police officer is actually the antagonist and Christopher Lee's character is the protagonist.
Sure.
We're led to believe by sort of Aristotelian plot structure, beginning, middle, and end, hero's journey, etc., to assume that the person who has the most to do is our protagonist. But I think if you really look at it, Christopher Lee would be the protagonist and victorious in the end.
Well, I think also just the character of Lord Summerisle is so much more interesting than the character of Howie, because I feel like you get a sense of who Howie is from the get-go, whereas Summerisle, I feel like even by the end credits, I'm still trying to figure him out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he's always upbeat. Like, I think that one of the geniuses of Christopher Lee's performance and the writing and the directing is the fact that Christopher Lee never rises to the bait. He never gets angry. He's steadfast in his beliefs, and he doesn't care if you believe it or not.
But I think part of that is because he's also the one who's in control, right? Like, at the end of the day, this is a bit of a mystery. And, Edward Woodward's Peter Howie is completely blindfolded, in part because of his religious convictions. But, I mean, Trace, I would probably push back on you a little bit. Like, Summerisle is definitely more interesting. That doesn't make him a protagonist, per se. It just makes him an interesting villain.
Yeah, sorry, I like him more because he's more interesting. I think about him more.
That is very fair. Like, people don't talk about Howie when they talk about this film. They talk about Christopher Lee Summerisle.
Yeah. Well, okay, so the finished script was presented to producer Peter Snell, and by this time he was the head of the production and distribution company British Lion. And the script received an enthusiastic reception, but British Lion was having financial troubles at the time. And so
here we go again.
Yeah. It was asked that the budget be kept low. Christopher Lee, having been involved in the project from the outset and keen to break out of the, quote, tired hammer Dracula cycle, which he felt had typecast him. I mean, by this point he had done 7 Dracula films, and he was really done with it after 1973's The Satanic Rites of Dracula. He wanted something more meaty, but I did look it up. That one is kind of considered to be the worst of his Dracula films, like the nail in the coffin, if you will.
Oh, boom.
But yeah, so he was cast as Summer Isle, and Summer Isle appealed to Lee because, in his words, he's not just evil. We never learn if Lord Summer Isle really actually believes in what he's saying. Lee, though, even thought that it was one of his best performances to his dying day.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
But also, I don't agree with his assertion. I don't think he thinks that he's evil, and I do firmly believe that... Well, okay, there's one moment that I'll point out in the plot synopsis where I think he maybe questions it, but I think most of the time, he's fully believing this.
I think Christopher Lee knows in his performance, but I think what the film gives us, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, like, oh, he's saying all this, but is he just doing this to maintain appearances, or does he really believe this is what's going to happen?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm team he believes it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and I also don't believe he's evil. I mean, they kill a guy, and supposedly they've killed some other people, but... intention versus
Isn't the net positive if we end up feeding this entire island?
I mean, apples are delicious. Who's going to argue with this?
Yeah. Now, filming lasted for 7 weeks during late fall of 1972. The shooting was done in some 25 locations, mostly around the film's base of Newton Stewart, Scotland. And I should point out, none of the filming was actually done on a real island, with production having to be certain not to include any modern houses in shots, because they were in places that had, old-timey style houses, but then right next door or in the background would be a modern house. They had to make sure they didn't get in the shot.
That is wild.
But in Scotland, right? The whole thing was in Scotland.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you've ever watched, oh God, now I'm bringing this up and I can't remember the name of it. We call it Scottish Murder. Oh God damn it. Anyway, there's a BBC show that we watch on BritBox that is all set in Scotland. And the joke is, I'm going to go next door and talk to my neighbor, and then there's a shot of a car driving through the Scottish mountains, and now they're at the next. Like, there's nothing around anything in that country, so I can't imagine it was very hard to isolate these houses.
I believe that it was on an island the entire time.
Shetland.
That's the verisimilitude of the movie. So.
Shetland.
Oh,
Shetland is the name of the murder show.
Got it. So, but as I said, this is from an autumn. The movie takes place in the summer. So we did a little bit of John Carpenter and Halloween trickery. Well, I guess this came first, but either way. They employed fake plastic apple trees and decorated the real bear trees with imitation blossoms. Locals were recruited to fill out the crowd scenes, and pupils from a ballet school helped with some of the dance routines. Everybody being kept warm with industrial fan heaters, because I guess it's cold over there in the summer. In the autumn, yes. To complement the authentic on-screen rituals, the film was to be set to an original folk music score, composed and arranged by queer composer Paul Giovanni, an American musician who was, funnily enough, dating the screenwriter Anthony Schaefer's twin queer brother Peter Schaefer, who is best known as the playwright of such plays as Amadeus and Equus.
Okay.
I know. So Paul had a very specific aesthetic about recording songs. Everything was close-mic'd and sung in a half voice. He never wanted projection, which is usually a very modern way of recording. And in the 70s, people did everything they could to remove any extra noise from the recording. No scratches, things like that. But Paul Giovanni was different. For example, on the guitar, he liked to record it so you could hear the finger noise of the musician working the strings. This technique has actually become more fashionable today in recording in the digital age, because digital recording is so perfect that we're looking for ways to go back to the quote-unquote good old days of sounding like crap, aka very natural.
So what you're saying is that a queer person was ahead of their time and basically established a precedent.
Yeah, pretty much. And adding an extra sense of hyper-reality to the proceedings, the diegetic music and the non-diegetic music, which I would argue you can't always tell what's what, they're all performed by the same musicians.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay.
Now, let's talk about this thing's release.
Okay, here we go. Because which version did everybody watch?
Yeah, there are 3 different versions that are out there, and it really seems to depend on whether you watch this on streaming or whether you watch this on physical media. So, the film's editor was Eric Boyd Perkins, who, together with Hardy, assembled a cut that was about 99 minutes long that would become known as the director's cut. So, That's what I'll be referring to this cut as, the 99-minute long director's cut. And this cut removed about 15 minutes of filmed material, including a great deal of the scene in which Lord Summerisle explains the history of the island to Howie.
Kind of important.
Well, Christopher Lee was really upset about this, but Hardy insists that the scene was already too wordy and overlong in its original form and would have seriously damaged the flow of the film, which is why it was cut down.
Okay, so cutting for pacing. Classic.
So that was 90. You said that was 90 minutes?
99. So, I mean, basically, I guess the original, like, rough cut that was never, ever going to be released was about an hour and, like, 54 minutes long. So they cut it down to 99 to get this director's cut, which was their ideal version of the film.
Okay.
Now, this director's cut also cut out a key scene in the beginning that shows Howie on the mainland investigating a pub that was making too much noise. And Hardy notes that by removing this scene, by removing more of Howie from the mainland before he gets to Summerisle, you don't understand about Howie, who he is, and it takes you a long time to find out about Howie's tics or why he tics as he's on the island. Whereas if this scene on the mainland was in there originally, you would have gotten all that from the get-go.
That's interesting, because the version I watched didn't have that scene.
No.
But it did have him in church. So I mean, so I felt like that was enough for me. Like, I got it.
I think you're
It's a
probably
different
right. Yeah. So peek ahead, the director's cut isn't really available anywhere, like this longer 99-minute cut, but I'll get into that in a minute. So by this point, British Lion was on the verge of being taken over by EMI Films, and new bosses were appointed who were not keen on the project that they found they had inherited. It's a tale as old as time. So,
I was going to say, this also sounds familiar.
Yeah. They initially refused to release The Wicker Man at all, even in Britain, maintaining that it had no market value whatsoever.
Bullshit.
So, let's go back to producer Peter Snell, who was still at British Lion working out his contract. He tried really hard to change their minds by promoting the film as much as possible. It was even entered in the non-competition segment of the Cannes Film Festival that year, complete with a huge Wicker Man prop erected outside the main hotel.
Oh, amazing.
Yep. And from these screenings, the film was sold to a number of foreign territories. But, okay.
Here we go.
During this time, these new bosses, these EMI guys at British Lion, they contacted none other than Roger Corman in Hollywood, who had seen the Wicker Man prop at Cannes and subsequently expressed interest in buying the film for American distribution. So, they sent him the 99-minute long director's cut, asking him to suggest changes to improve its marketability. And Corman's suggestions were to aim the film for the American drive-in market, saying that the film needed tightening, and proposed about 13 minutes worth of additional cuts. This would allow it to play as a B picture, aka the secondary supporting picture in a double bill, back in the UK.
Yeah, that's the only problem. I feel like Roger Corman is not the right person to make edits on a film like this. Like, this is not a Roger Corman type bill.
As soon as you said his name, I'm like, no, this isn't going to turn out well.
Love him, but not the right fit.
It's like hearing that Lloyd Kaufman and Troma have picked up something. You're like, oh, God, no.
Exactly. So The Wicker Man was then cut down to 88 minutes. So about 11 minutes of screen time was cut out. And this is what we're going to call the theatrical cut. And this seems to be what's available on most streaming services today. Parts of the plot in this cut were changed around, moving some of the details of Howie's second night on the island ahead to the first night. So, for example, Willow's, Britt Ekland's new dance scene, which is, oh my god, that was actually moved much earlier in the film's runtime on his first night, as opposed to, shortly before the climax of the film. So that's how you're really going to know which version you are watching, is where is Britt Ekland's new dance scene in the film.
I can just imagine Roger Corman be like, get to the tits earlier.
Now, all of the remaining footage of Howie on the mainland was deleted, and a long sequence involving the sexual initiation of a teenage boy by Willow was also removed. So I think, Sean, if you had him in the church at the beginning, I think then you're watching a different cut that we all watched, the main cut that we should be watching. But again,
right, I saw the cut I'm looking at right now. It was 1 hour and 33 minutes.
Yep.
It had the church, but not the bar. It has what appears to be the whole, initiation of the young boy.
Yep.
And I think the naked dance, I can't remember where it comes. I was just so fascinated by that scene. Yeah, so an hour and 33 minutes. So
Yes.
it seems like it's somewhere in between.
Yes,
a few
exactly.
days.
Exactly.
Which is the third cut.
It is the third cut. But before
okay.
okay, so here's the thing though. So the problem with the theatrical cut, this Roger Corman version, there was no consultation with Robin Hardy or anyone involved with the production. They were told by the higher ups, this is the way the film is going to be, and that was it. And composer Paul Giovanni said, and I quote, "Whatever you think of the director's cut, the theatrical cut is laughable, very nearly silly. It is especially ludicrous, grotesque even, to have Eklund's dance scene come in so soon. It makes no sense."
Which is great because presumably it's called the theatrical cut because that's the one that people saw in the theater.
Yeah. So, okay. Actually, both of you, can one of you guess what the A movie was in the double bill with The Wicker Man?
Oh, God.
What year was it actually released? 73?
So, 73 is around here. 73, 74.
The A movie.
It is a British film, and Joe, I can tell you right now, it's one of your favorites.
Is it Don't Look Now?
It is Don't Look Now.
Oh my God, that's a terrible double bill.
I was going to guess Asylum.
So, okay, yeah. The Nicholas Roeg movie, Don't Look Now, had been released by British Lion sometime previously, and it was now entering a smaller extra run in London. So, the heads at British Lion now saw the chance to offload the Wicker Man theatrical cut as this B picture, which was apparently a huge insult to the film, even more so given that the AB picture system was practically extinct by this time.
Jeez.
Thematically, they go together, though. I mean, right? Like, just sort of plot-wise, broad strokes.
A little bit. They both involve like a missing or dead child.
Yeah. So, finally, in December 1973, The Wicker Man stumbled into release. Christopher Lee telephoned all the film critics he knew, begging them to attend the film, and even offering to pay for their seats. Some reasonable reviews followed, but by mid-1974, The Wicker Man had done most of its business. So,
Sure.
in the US, despite the offer of $50,000, the film was not secured by Roger Corman. So they basically they got him to cut it down and then use that for their British release, basically. British Lion wanted to recover more of the original £450,000 production cost, and eventually a sum of around $300,000 US dollars was offered by a company called National General. But National General went bankrupt 4 days after the deal was signed.
The number of films that we have covered that you probably are familiar with from your book, where it's like, oh yeah, we were making this movie for, pennies, and we went to all these private financiers, and then our company went bankrupt. And you're just like, man, there's a lot of companies that went bankrupt in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. So when this company went bankrupt, the rights to distribute The Wicker Man in America then passed to Warner Brothers. And in mid-1974, Warner's tested the film in a few areas of the U.S., mainly the San Diego area, and a college theater and assorted drive-ins in Atlanta, earning a highly favorable review in Variety. But then they eventually just gave up because they were like, okay, I guess they couldn't figure out a way to really release it wide. Hardy reflected on this time, saying, and I quote, "What hope did we have with an audience who were fucking themselves silly in the back of their parents' Fords?"
So we're not a fan of drive-ins, is what we're saying.
Not for this movie. So, cut to late 1976. Hardy, now based in America, was working on a couple of screenplays and decided to go find out what had happened to The Wicker Man, with the hope of kicking it back into release based on the growing American fan-student interest. The American distribution rights had now been sold by Warner's for just $20,000 to a small outfit called Abraxas. Now, Hardy got in touch with Abraxas and explained that the film was now in a form far removed from what he and screenwriter Anthony Schaefer had originally planned. So, he contacted that producer Peter Snell, and, along with Lee and Schaefer in London, they all four began to attempt to find a copy of the original director's cut, that 99-minute version, in order to restore the film to a more complete form than the Roger Corman theatrical cut that had been given to Abraxas. So basically, they only had this theatrical cut, and they could not find what the print of the original director's cut.
Well, we had to remember that, because this continues to happen, right? We always assume that because somebody directed or executive produced or something like that, that they must have a copy of the original film. But the reality is that the studios own those. And if they don't care about that film, half the time they're getting tossed in a salt mine.
Well, and the old systems of cataloging this stuff are so obsolete and literally on paper that is falling apart in a file somewhere.
right.
That's when these Blu-ray and 4K companies manage to dig up an original print. They're really like, doing the legwork to find this shit, because it is buried.
Well, and that's the thing. So the only negative of the film at British Lion was for that shorter theatrical cut, but they managed to find what would appear to be the only negative of the director's cut in the hands of Roger Corman himself.
Okay. All right. So we're all now going to take back all the negative things we just said about Roger Corman about 5 to 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the end of the story to pass judgment.
I know. We're almost there. So a duplicate of the director's cut of Corman's print, Corman's negative, was made, and Hardy set about reconstructing his original cut for a special American re-release. But here's the thing. Abraxas agreed with the original feelings of British Lion that the introductory mainland scenes were too everyday and mundane, and Hardy, having no strong feelings about these particular sequences either way, left them out at their request. So this new version, though, did reintroduce most of the longer cut scenes and restored the original flow of events. So again, moving Willow's dance back to Howie's second night, where it was much more suitable. So basically, this cut is kind of a compromise between the longer director's cut and the shorter theatrical cut. And running around 94 minutes, this semi-restored version, henceforth called the Final Cut, was released in America in autumn of 1977 when it became a huge success. Cult movie magazine Cinefantastique even devoted a whole issue to the film, calling it the Citizen Kane of horror films.
Wow.
Honestly, this sounds like Blade Runner's journey.
A little bit, yeah. And the Blu-ray I have, it says right on the top, like, the Final Cut. So it can be confusing if you are looking at different versions of this film and you see director's cut, you're like, oh, that's the one I should be watching because that's Hardy's like desired version. No, the Final Cut is now considered kind of the definitive version of this movie.
Fascinating, because I found it on like a super illegal Russian, right? Like with ads that were in Russian in between. But it sounds like it's that cut. So I guess I watched the right one.
Yeah. Now, the director's cut, so the longer version, remained elusive in the UK, with the theatrical cut being what was primarily available at home video in the US during the late 80s and early 90s. Now, currently, this remains the status quo. The theatrical cut is still available in good quality, and again, seems to be what most streamers have available. The final cut is what's available on most modern Blu-ray releases, and the director's cut is represented solely in the archives by a poor standard definition videotape copy transferred from Corman's print sometime in the 80s. And it is possible that Corman's 35mm film copy of the director's cut is still out there somewhere, but as of now, as far as I can tell, no one knows where it is.
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre documentary has sort of set the standard for releasing various cuts of films from different countries, and so I would be interested, although I feel like I've seen everything in this film, but I don't know, this one seems ripe for that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, again, like, not having seen the theatrical cut to the director's cut, like, I don't have an issue with the pacing of the final cut at all.
No, I actually think that the pacing of this film is really well done.
Agreed.
Well, unless you tell someone it's a horror film and then they're like, where are all the scares? Meh.
That's when you just say, oh, it's a folk horror film. So shut the fuck up and enjoy the songs.
Actually, what you do is you say it's a folk horror musical, and it's going to turn a lot of people off right there.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, when all is said and done, The Wicker Man had a very positive critical reception. So we're looking at a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Letterboxd users have given this a 4 out of 5. Box office numbers, though, I don't really have because, again, based on that release history, what can you do? But, Joe, what happens in this movie?
Okay, so I'm going to acknowledge I have a academic reference I'm going to use a couple of times throughout this. So I'm going to reference Nicola Lakshmanan's piece called Queer Subtext in the Wicker Man, 1973, for Journal for Cultural Research from 2023. So, this movie opens on Sunday, the 29th of April, 1973, at a Christian church service as parishioners sing and take communion. And we should note, you really don't get a sense of it in this cut. Like, you'll note dialogue near the end of the film, but our main character, Sergeant Neil Howie, who is played by Edward Woodward, he is engaged to be married to one of the women in this church.
I really like this opening scene, though, because, again, for most most people in the United States, at least, you're going to watch this is a totally normal, like, Catholic procession. We're doing the Eucharist here. But even hearing how he's talking about anticipating the resurrection of the Lord and all this stuff, I think this is very intentionally here to be like, this is quote unquote normal. So why don't you think the pagan stuff that we're going to get to in a little bit is also normal when it sounds just as unbelievable as maybe what I'll say?
Speaking of unbelievable, there's a little crumb dropped here in the beginning that comes up in the end, and it's the fact that I believe, if I heard this correctly, we're supposed to believe that Howie is a virgin.
Yes, we are. He's saving himself for marriage.
Which, I mean, I do believe that. I based on how devout he is, I do believe that.
Yes, I mean, obviously the movie is telling us that is true. It's just, he's not a teenager. He's a grown-ass man, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, I did find reference in this article that if you read, I think, early drafts of the screenplay and maybe the official novelization, you can actually hear a little bit more about his relationship with his fiancée, who I believe is named Mary. They have been engaged for 3 years, and she actually starts to wonder if he even loves her because he's never... tried to initiate sex. So that is how devout he is. But also, low-key, I'm going to argue that's maybe a little sign of queerdom.
1,000%.
Fellas, if you're engaged to be married and you have no interest in your wife sexually...
Yeah.
The Catholic Church is a great place to hide if you're gay.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the organizations that really values and proselytizes about
abstinence,
chastity, all the other good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get this plane started. So we cut to a police water plane taking off and flying, and this is all happening over the credits as we are introduced to this delicious folk music. And folks, get ready because we're just going to be hearing music like this throughout most of the film.
Oh yeah, like at least every 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of great though.
Mm-hmm.
Like... I love it.
I will say on this Blu-ray, there's they have a bunch of people on here that are, like horror fans that are talking about how their love for the film. So, it's people like Ben Wheatley and Eli Roth, of all people, who was talking about how he listens to this soundtrack every day.
Whoa, okay.
It's interesting how the music's introduced because I didn't realize how much music was in the film.
No.
You never do unless you're warned ahead of time.
And it's almost disconcerting because you're ready for it to stop, right? You're ready for after the first, the credits, which is beautiful, and then the first time people sing, and then you're like,
setting the stage, the tone, the atmosphere, and then you're like, okay, movie has begun. Right. Oh no, we're going to stop. We're going to do some more folk music.
Right, exactly. We're going to do a 14-minute song in a bar.
And that's what makes it so unsettling, though, is because so much of this movie does take place in the daylight, but also the music is very jaunty and jovial. It's not a typical horror score that you would expect.
Well, this is a celebration, folks. There's no darkness here. We don't commit murders. We're deeply religious people on Summer Isle. So this is where Howie lands, and he calls for the dinghy, but we immediately encounter some tension, and this will be a pattern that repeats through every fucking interaction that he will have with people on this island, where he is unwelcome and his attitude is aggressive. So he demands that they bring over the dinghy, and the harbor master, who is played by Russell Waters, refuses because this island is private property. So Howie just goes, well, this is a police matter, so I basically supersede this, and you need to come help me.
I do love this, though, because we do learn at the end of the film that, the whole island is in on this. They are all very aware of what's going on. So them still sticking to this whole, it's probably like making him work, basically, to get more access to the island. They're just fucking with him.
It's a performance.
Right. They're making everything 10% harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Which makes him work harder, which I feel like is the deal, right? Like they're trying to get him to really dig in and figure it out.
They're looking for that devotion from him, right? To prove just how worthy he is as a sacrifice. Sean, I know you mentioned that you felt like this was reminiscent of The Lottery. I kept getting airs of the original Stepford Wives in this, where it's just a whole town of deception, right? And the whole end game is to bring in this outsider to a point where we can essentially sacrifice or do something terrible to them. There's such a fantastic horror conceit in that. But you're right, Trace. I love that so much of this film is just, it's weird interactions. mostly taking place during the daytime.
It's a lot of things too, where like a lot of the weird stuff in the film that really should be red flags, the film doesn't always highlight. Like they're there in the background. I mean, I'm even thinking specifically when he goes to this do we want to call it a candy shop, a cake shop, a chocolate shop?
Yeah, it's the post office / confectionery.
Yeah, like the stuff that's on display, I was like, oh yeah, it's like an Easter bunny, but that's not what they're calling it. It's a hare. But then there's some stuff where I'm like, that's a weird chocolate-shaped baby or whatever.
Just weird shit abounds.
And I wish that I had seen this with fresh eyes because I knew what was going to happen. Right? We all by this point, if you don't know the end of the Wicker Man, you're not doing due diligence. So to see this for the first time and not really know what's going on, the ending, which we'll get to, obviously, is so much more shocking.
Right.
And I'm realizing now, as we talk about this, you talk about daylight. Also, I would say 60% of the scenes of this film involve children.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In some form or another. And including the end. And that's really... that's you don't expect something bad to happen when there's so many kids around because we're just programmed to like, you don't kill kids, but like the central mystery of this is maybe they've killed some kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that is the thing. Yeah. So you like knowing the ending of the film, you're watching this knowing the entire time. Oh yeah, these paganists, these islanders, they are going to kill him at the end. So you're attuned to looking for the red flags that we're discussing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think it gives the film a huge rewatchability though, because in some ways, we're so much ahead of where Howie is throughout most of the film. Like, I think on a first watch, you're right, Sean, it would be a huge surprise. Like, if we lived back in 73, 74 when this is coming out, it would have been, holy shit. I don't think you would believe this movie would end with a huge burning effigy with a man inside it and a bunch of animals. But I think it lends the film like a lot of rewatchability because it's exciting to watch how like this entire island of people are gaslighting this single individual for the purposes of like, well, we got to do what we got to do to get those apple crops back.
And the fact that you are programmed in 1972 for the good guys to win, for the cop to win, for the cop to figure out the mystery. And maybe the worst thing is that they've killed some girls in the past and boy, they're all going to be brought to justice.
Right.
And then 15 minutes of someone being burned to death, it's that you thought was going to solve the mystery. Like, it's crazy.
That is the thing. Because truthfully, like the climactic ritual occupies the last 30 minutes of this movie. It's actually very drawn out, but it also goes by very quickly.
It's so fast.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so Howie has arrived on this island finally. They have brought him out from the plane, and now he's on the mainland of the island. And he shows this group of men this picture of Rowan Morrison, who will eventually be played by Geraldine Cowper. And he explains he got an anonymous letter and this girl is missing, but immediately, right off the bat, none of these men seem to recognize the girl. They're like, have no idea who that is.
Yeah, and this is something that the remake does change too, Sean, where basically like he's still looking for a missing girl, but it's the bastard child of his ex-girlfriend who is one of the islanders.
Yeah, so he has a more direct connection to it, whereas here, he's just a really diligent police officer.
Yeah.
Okay, so he is directed to, the post office / confectionery, which is run by Mae Morrison. And
I love this woman.
Yeah, so she's great. She's played by Irene Sunter. And before we get there, though, we should note that the harbor master says that even though we don't know who Rowan is, like we claim don't know or don't recognize the picture, this harbor master says, oh, well, Rowan, like you should go and talk to the woman at the post office, but also Rowan isn't her daughter. And when pressed, Howie's like, okay, so who is she then? And he's like, I'm just not going to elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a suspension of disbelief required for like Howie not, because I mean, like the Islanders, like, they'll say, oh, no, she's not there. But then, like, as soon as he catches them in a lie, they're like, oh, yeah, she totally lives here. And it's like, okay. Like, elaborate,
he just keeps
please?
catching them in lies, but then they don't exactly double down. They just kind of shrug it off.
Yeah.
Oops, I guess you caught us.
The big one is the classroom, which you'll get to, where totally caught in a lie. And then the teacher explains some stuff. and then the scene's just over.
Yeah.
Right, like because they need it to be. Because
exactly.
the filmmakers need it to be.
But I don't believe that Howie would have just given up on that line of questioning. It's like, excuse me.
Well, I hear what you're both saying, but the way that we see all the interactions play out, I assume that all of these townspeople would just look at him and stop answering questions until he left. Like, he would become increasingly frustrated and probably irate with them, but I don't imagine anyone on this island cracking.
Valid.
Did you ascribe any of this kind of stuff to the sort of dreamlike quality of the whole film? Because there's moments where, the music plays and things happen, and does he hear the music or not? And then it's montage and it's fantastical. And I thought, unlike some movies who use that sparingly, I don't know, I felt like that was the brush with which the entire film was painted. So there were times when I had to suspend my disbelief, but it fit within the style of the editing of the film.
I could see that. I can totally. And again, truthfully, like this isn't a movie ruining thing for me. It's just one of those things where I'm like, come on, man, like you're a better cop than that.
Right. Okay. So one of the things that he discovers when he gets to this post office and he's interacting with May is that she already has a daughter. So Myrtle, who is played by Jennifer Martin, is in the back room. So it's kind of like, okay, so who is Rowan to these people? Like, she shares the same last name. But again, May is kind of saying, oh no, my daughter is right there. And even when he talks to Myrtle, she says, oh, I know Rowan. She's out in the fields. But she's not a girl. She's a hare. And you're thinking, okay, like, what the fuck is everyone in this town
You're just
on?
Talking in riddles now.
Basically, everybody is doing it. Okay, so he goes to the local pub, which is called the Green Man Inn. So he's going to end up staying upstairs in a room as a lodger, but this is also the local pub. And I love how American Werewolf in London basically steals this entire entrance where he walks in. There's lively chatter. Everybody's getting drunk, having fun. He walks in and everybody just goes dead silent.
Joe, do you have any significance on the symbolism of the Green Man? Because his face is what opens the film.
I think it's just another pagan symbol.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have anything deeper per se.
That's fine. I was just curious.
Yeah, but I can tell you that this barkeep and the landlord who runs the Green Man, who is Alder McGregor, is played by an out gay man. So this is Lindsay Camp. And Trace, if we were doing my usual game, then I would ask you where we have seen him before. You would not get it. But he is the jester from the Vampire Lovers.
Oh, yeah, I never would have gotten that. But yay. By the way, he was rumored to have had an affair with David Bowie.
Yes, yeah, he's one of David Bowie's muses.
Fascinating.
So Howie is shown to his room by Alder's daughter, Willow, who, as you mentioned, Trace, is played by Britt Eklund. And then we get this almost fish-eyed lens as the patrons sing the first of many songs to come, which I believe, I don't know, the most common lyric in it is the landlord's daughter. And it's basically, it's very bawdry, it's a little salacious, and we have to watch as Howie just stands there looking extremely uncomfortable until he essentially tells him to shut the fuck up because he's there on very serious police business. And they're all just like, all right, man. We were just having fun.
This song is called The Landlord's. I think I've got the names of every single song because I Shazammed them as I was watching the movie. But yeah, so all of these songs are filled with double entendres,
Yes.
like in this song, the lyric is like, the parts of every gentleman do stand up at attention. It goes on saying, nothing can delight so as much as the part between her left toe and her right toe. Okay.
We're not talking about toes, people.
I don't think we are either. I should point out to Eklund, who, by the way, would go and shoot a James Bond movie with Christopher Lee the year after this, and The Man with the Golden Gun. She could seemingly not produce a reasonable Scottish accent because she's Swedish, I believe. So she had all of her dialogue dubbed in post-production by Scottish actress and singer Annie Ross. And during her dance scene, she is having a butt double that she did not approve of.
Oh.
Wait, is Annie Ross the jazz singer who was in the Basket Case movies?
Ooh, let me see.
But while you look that up, I love the fact that the song is basically about her. Like she stands there as they sing a song that's basically, this woman is a giant whore. And she just loves it.
Yeah, she's like, I love this. This is great. Everybody just call me the town bicycle. We've got a literal song that's just about how promiscuous I am. I guess this is what we do for fun on Summer Isle.
This is also the moment when Howie really shows what a dick he is, because this is an inn. They're singing. It has it's not under his purview as a police officer, but he shuts it down. And I'm like, it's
stop having fun.
Right. If we're to believe he is the protagonist, and you've heard my previous argument that he's not, but if we're to believe it, I think it's sort of a canny move by the filmmakers to continue to make the protagonist so unlikable.
Yeah.
And try, but you know, your job is also to try to get your audience on their side. So, I know maybe that was to get us more on board with the end in some way. I'm not sure. It's just so counterintuitive. It's one of the reasons why I really love this film.
But I can confirm, yes, this Annie Ross that dubs Britt Eklund's character is the exact same Annie Ross, the Scottish jazz singer who plays Granny Ruth in Basket Case 2 and 3.
Wow.
I'm so happy I pulled that out of my ass.
Yeah, really.
Good Sean. Good job.
That was on the fly. I swear I don't have IMDb up. I just was like, oh, that name sounds really familiar.
That name. Yeah. Yeah. I wish that we could have found some capsule reviews of the time just to get a better sense of whether audiences were ever on this guy's side. Because I can imagine in another version of this, you could look at what happens at the end of the film as something of a tragedy, but that would force you to relate or identify with Howie. And every time I watch this movie, I always just think, what a belligerous fucking dick. Like, I don't feel bad for him when it happens. I think, oh, that would hurt a lot. But also the whole way he has treated everyone on this island, this entire film, it's a bit of a good for us to watch him burn movie.
At the risk of bringing in too much current politics to this, I will say that we're kind of in the Wicker Man in that the given circumstances are, you know, our conservative folks in this country felt very put upon by what was happening up until very recently. And then they managed to sort of get into power. And now their sole purpose is to like punish and antagonize the people that were, you know, so it's not too hard to see, you know, the pagans being, you know, what the right would consider like woke in a negative way.
Yes.
And, you know, and so there may be a lot of people right now that would watch this movie with fresh eyes and be like, well, team that guy. Like, we're all sick of the pagan shit. Like, you know, get him in line.
My husband, at least once a week, is like, hey, so, like, once we can retire, do you want to go, like, find a commune that we can start with our friends and just, like, live there and, like, totally cut ourselves off from the outside world? And I was like, well, I want to go see movies still. But, yeah. So watching this, I was kind of like, honestly, this seems like a haven for me. Like, I would love to go live here. I mean, maybe not with all the sacrificing and stuff, but, like, this looks great.
I don't know. If the sacrifice isn't you.
Yeah. I'll offer you Palm Springs, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's so good. You know, it's really close to Los Angeles. I spend a lot of time there with my husband. We were probably retired there.
There we go.
Yeah, it's real good.
Okay. Let's all make retirement plans to go to Palm Springs. And we'll rename it Summer Isle.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah. So Howie puts a stop to all of these festivities. Stop having fun. Help me search for this missing girl. And they're just kind of like, But we should note, before he ends up retiring upstairs, he does note that there is a picture missing from the wall of Harvest Festival pictures. So last year's picture with a particular girl seems to be missing from the wall.
I guess we haven't mentioned the one film that probably does take a lot of inspiration from this movie, and that's Ari Aster's Midsummer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ...
It's got the maple. What can we say?
I'm not a huge fan of that film, but I'll happily compare the two if we get
right.
I mean, it's not a 1-to-1 comparison, but I think there are a lot of similarities, especially with the cults. I'm going to call them the cults.
Yeah,
yes, and I did think that when I watched this. Like, I thought, there are some actual very direct parallels, including
yes. I think the styling alone, just the kind of visual look of both the movies, it's hard to get away from. Never mind the fact that we've got maypole sequences in literally both films. I won't lie, I was also thinking gentle Silent Hill vibes. Although that one is way more horrific for most of the runtime.
Less foggy.
Less foggy, yeah. Summer Isle in fog is what I'm saying. Okay, so Howie ends up asking for dinner immediately. He wants it right now. And he's very perturbed when he doesn't get any kind of fresh things. He complains that everything seems to have come out of a can. And Willow explains that all of the produce, and especially the fresh apples that the island is known for, have been exported. And then she encourages him to cheer the fuck up because he's a grouchy puss.
But at the same time, though, he has turquoise-colored beans in his soup, which... I mean, I would eat them, but I would look at that and be like, that's an interesting color for a bean.
What an unusual color. Things are just a little different on Summer Isle, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the bean's woke.
Well, maybe that too. Gay beans, yeah. So when Howie leaves the inn later, we see that there are multiple couples fucking in the dark in slow motion. So we're into a little bit of hedonism, a little public nudity and sexuality.
Yeah, and this, so I got the impression that this is something that just happens nightly. This isn't like a particular, this is the ritual for this time of the year or whatever. Like, this is just something that people just do on the nightly.
Same. I thought it was like on the regular.
Yeah, there's like free love. Everyone so actually, Joe, to answer your question from earlier, any hippie is going to see this movie probably did really side with the Islanders.
Right. Oh, that's just us. I feel seen on the screen. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like we don't have quite enough information because at the end of the film, you realize so many things have been done to either woo him or to, get his back up. So I don't know how much of this is them playing a part to get him into the right mode so that they can really figure out if he's the right person to sacrifice.
I'm going to say both. They would do this anyway. It's just two birds, one stone, that they're accomplishing their fucking goal, and then they're also accomplishing their, hey, let's weird out the new cop goal.
Exactly. It's an everybody wins situation, except for Howie. So we do also have a naked woman crying at a gravestone. And then I think we've established that this is a scene exclusive to the final cut or to that original longer cut. But when Howie retires to his room, he eavesdrops on Lord Summer Isle, who is, of course, played by Christopher Lee. And he is introducing this young boy, Ash Buchanan, who is played by Richard Wren, to Willow as another sacrifice for Aphrodite, and Lord Summer Isle cautions Willow to ensure she's ready for tomorrow's more serious offering as opposed to tonight. So tonight's offering is fuck this young kid in the kilt, and then tomorrow will be try to get, the copper, essentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, even though we're not seeing the sex scene between these two characters, it's still, look, anyone, whether you are Howie or not, is going to look at this and be like, that's inappropriate.
Right. Well, especially because the continuation of this scene is that I think that moment where we hear Summer Isle sort of like standing outside, like technically, I think in the regular cut, we don't see him until Howie goes to his mansion, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually thinking, although I did know the ending, I thought, the B story was that Britt Eklund's character was going to be sacrificed. That was in this moment. It was like, bang this dude. This is part of the thing.
Right.
Tomorrow night, get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I could see that. Yeah.
I mean, they've set up the fact that we think that young girls are being sacrificed for the crops, which I have a question about that at the end. Or maybe ask it now. I'm not sure.
No, ask it. Come on.
So after watching the film and seeing the ending where they sacrifice him because he's the perfect sacrifice to bring the crops back, and the fact that Rowan is not dead, sacrificed, it made me think, were they actually not sacrificing these girls? Are these girls truly just like the maiden of the, the ceremony, and they're still all alive?
Well, yes. And the thing is, because I think there's a line Summer Isle says where he says this is the first time they've had to do this since like his great grandfather's days. So I don't even think Summer Isle was alive the last time they had to do this. And so that's the other thing where I'm like, I guess I'm thinking about, Joe, you and I just revisited Ready or Not, where it's like, we have this thing that our grandfather did and we're doing this ritual every year, but we don't really know if it's real or not. That's kind of going into my theme about, does Summer Isle believe this? Because he's never had to do this sacrifice to bring the crops back. And his rule, the crops have always been fine.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I missed that. So I just assumed that they were sacrificing this girl, which I think we're supposed to think throughout the whole thing.
Yes. That's definitely the red herring of it all, but no, basically the girl, the May Queen or whatever you want to call her, she is never sacrificed for this. No. She's just the May Queen. That's all it is.
So here's the thing. I'm dumb about movies. Like I'm the person that has to watch a movie more than once, and my husband is forever explaining things to me when we're watching films. So you can count on me to be like your regular audience member on a first watch.
There we go. We need figures like that.
Truthfully, Sean, though, because this is only the second time I've seen this movie, I had it in my mind that this is something they sacrifice someone every year. So again, when I caught that line, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. They've never done this before.
Yeah, they typically only do animals, and those are sufficient. But if the crops have completely failed, then you need to, escalate it, move it up the food chain a little bit, and then you go for someone as big as a human being.
Okay, but like the escalation is animal, small child, and then a perfect adult. So if an animal doesn't work, get a child. If the child doesn't work, get a perfect adult.
Right. I guess the implication being that they've tried a small child in the past.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, because I think they need to bring somebody from off the island. Like, it's not going to work to sacrifice one of themselves, because you need someone who is so pure, who is so willing to give themselves up.
I mean, I don't think this is the case, but it could just be another instance of Summer Isle fucking with him. Like, yeah, if an animal doesn't work, a small child might.
Right.
Oh, I just thought of something. So if the criteria for being sacrificed in the Wicker Man is like your resume is like X, Y, and Z, and also a virgin, maybe that it informs all of everybody on the village like fucking all the time. Like maybe you're taking yourself out of the running for Burning Man or Wicker Man duty if you banged it out.
It could also be a test for him, because if he had partaken in the sexual activities, then he wouldn't have been a suitable sacrifice. So they're testing him to keep making sure that he holds to his
beliefs, his convictions.
Right, exactly.
Certainly that's the next time when we see Britt Eklund.
Yeah.
Well, you're 100% correct, Trace, because a lot of people have interpreted that if he had have succumbed to Willow's, basically humping the wall and inviting him to come and fuck her, some people have said, oh, that means they wouldn't have been able to sacrifice him for Mayday. But then a lot of other people, I think the director and Christopher Lee included, believe it wouldn't have mattered what he did. They would have done this to him anyway.
Yeah.
He would have been the best candidate. You know what I'm saying? At that point, not the perfect candidate.
Right.
So still good.
Yeah. Okay, so we're still at this scene where Ash, this younger boy, is being offered up to Willow, so we have to hear as they fuck, but Lord Summer Isle is still kind of down there, half in the dark, listening and whispering and talking and stuff. So I'm going to bring in Lakshmanan here for a fairly extended bit, because I didn't know this. I thought that this was just, Christopher Lee doing his beautiful, sumptuous voice thing, and what he's actually doing is reciting Walt Whitman's poem, Song of Myself. We should note that many people consider Whitman to be historically bisexual, so he himself didn't confirm it, but a lot of people read between the lines of his various plays, his relationships to close male friends, and so on. So yes, a lot of people find codes for homosexuality within his work, and Song of Myself is his most homoerotic poem. So the homoeroticism is amplified by the fact that in subsequent lines, from what we hear in this movie, Whitman says his ideal animal is a gigantic beauty of a stallion, fresh and responsive to my caresses. At festivals with blackguard gibes, ironic license, bull dances, drinking, and laughter. And we should note that both bulls and stallions are masculine symbols, and the scene that we're hearing in the film with the pub singing Gently Johnny as Ash walks through, there is a painting of a man astride a horse, and Willow will actually compare Howie to a bull when she tries to seduce him later. So she says how a maid can milk a bull. So that, coupled with the fact that bull dances and he festivals refer to same-sex dances and sexual activity. So all of this to say that this is, in a way, Summer Isle, he's preparing for this ritual, the sacrifice, in a couple of days, but he's effectively looking in the window at Howie out of the shadows. So it's him kind of yearning for this other man that he can't have, that he's brought to the island to sacrifice. This is all happening while we're getting close-ups of snails fucking on the branches in front of him.
I did make note of the snails.
Yes, so terrestrial snails are considered hermaphrodites because they have both male and female genitalia. So he's watching copulating snails, and this is what Lakshmanan suggests. The scene implies Summer Isle wishes to deflower Howie the way Willow is deflowering Ash. His desire for Howie is a queer desire both to penetrate and be penetrated by him, the way the snails are doing to each other. The scene's strong homoerotic subtext makes it easy to see why it was excised from many versions of the film.
That's interesting because yes, I thought this could have been excised for one of two reasons. One, because we have an adult woman seducing an underage boy.
Right.
B, also, this is technically Summer Isle's introduction, and it's done without any kind of pomp or circumstance. So, like, when we really get to meet him about 40 minutes in, when Howie meets him, like, that's his big introduction. So,
Agreed.
I thought also, this could have been removed because, I mean...
They don't want to give the villain the piece away. They want to make a strong entrance. And I think that totally makes sense. And then you think, there's also a lot of homoeroticism here that if people picked up on it, they said, we're not going to be able to export this to foreign territories.
I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't dip in here about the queer subtext, just because, it's like my thing. I clocked that when it was happening, but I also, at the end of the film, was a little disappointed, caveat, it's 1972 when this is, in production, or 71, that, paganism traditionally is very open to queerness in general, and always has been. And so I actually found it interesting that it wasn't really in play in this film, and most conspicuously, interestingly, with the women. Because, the British horror loves its lesbian vampires, right? And loves, lady on lady action. And there was a little sort of vibe of that. I mean, you've got Britt Eklund in a movie. How can there not be? But yeah, I just found it interesting that it didn't lean more into that to make the pagans more of a villain to the general public. Not that I want them seen as that, but that would feel like,
more in keeping.
Right, like they're killing kids. Let's make them queer too.
I feel like the closest we get is when we see the women jumping over the fire, but even that, they're talking about birth, right? And rebirth. And you're kind of like, no, that's still pretty heteronormative.
Right. They're just naked together, but they're not like lesbitronic action or anything like that.
No. That is interesting. Yeah, because this period would have been especially ripe for that.
All the hippies, the hippie culture was very free love and, pagan based, and, radical fairy stuff was starting. Yeah. Opportunity missed, Wicker Man.
Truly. Why you gotta be so square, Wicker Man? Okay, so in the morning, Howie gets directions to go to the school, and we will see that this is primarily attended by girls only. This is also where he passes, and the kids are doing your favorite song, Trace.
I love the Maple song.
Okay, so at this school, this is where we're introduced to Miss Rose, who is a Diane Salento.
Oh, also, Joe, by the way, so this woman at the time was married to Sean Connery, but then they would get divorced, and then she would actually marry Anthony Schaefer, this film's screenwriter, in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so just some National Enquirer tabloid drama for you.
I love that. I always think it's super weird when people end up working with people on a film, and then later on they get married, and you're like, so were you two, like, making fuck eyes at each other on the production, or?
I mean, she was married to Sean Connery.
But haven't we determined that Sean Connery is not an honorable man, right?
Yeah,
like, maybe this is for the best.
Yeah, probably so.
I mean, they would have been a hot couple, but yeah, I guess she's like, no, I'm gonna go with this guy who's good with the writing instead.
But Joe, tell us what she's teaching her class of girls about.
Okay, so basically she's giving them a sexually provocative lesson, which more or less boils down to, hey, the maypole is basically presented as a phallic symbol. So she's teaching them how, hey, this whole ceremony is about worshiping this giant penis.
Well, I love it though, because she's talking to them, and she's like, oh, like, come on, girls, answer a question. And then all of them just say phallic symbol in unison.
She's so upset with that one girl, like she didn't do her homework. Like, Geraldine, I told you to go home and study the phallus. Come on.
This is one of my favorite, like, the reaction shots to Howie. And then, like, as soon as he realizes that they're talking about, oh, the maypole is a penis, we get this like fast zoom into the top of the maypole as he looks at it. It's a really funny comedic beat.
I love it. It's also interesting that the boys are out doing what you would think is sort of a feminine thing, dancing
dancing
around
and
the
singing,
maypole,
yeah.
and the girls are all learning. Right? They're in class.
Because it's heathenism, right? Like they're not adhering to traditional gender roles, and it's offensive.
Yeah. In retrospect too, it's fun. Like as a kid, I would have loved this movie because the kids were in on the scam, right? The kids were also playing a part, and it was a little theater kid that I was. I would be like chopping it to bits to be part of it.
Yeah, the prequel to The Wicker Man is just the 6 months of performance that they all had to put in. Like, okay, this is how we're going to stage this. This is the timing. Okay, Becky, I'm going to need you to learn your lines about that fucking beetle that he's going to find in the desk because we need this whole weekend has got to go according to plan, everybody.
It's like Tony and Tina's wedding, except with more sacrifice.
Oh, God.
Except Tony is sacrificed at the end of the evening.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so we do find this empty desk because, of course, Howie is looking to see if Rowan was one of the students. When he opens it up, he does find a beetle on a string. And, of course, metaphor alert, everybody, he's the beetle.
He's the beetle. But this is a little sadistic, isn't it?
I mean, I took it at face value because it's kids, and kids will play with insects. They'll fry ants with magnifying glasses and do all sorts of terrible things. But yeah, I mean, I guess this suggests that everybody is not just in on it, but like they're all prepared to do terrible things.
I guess I took this as part of the ritual because we are to believe this is Rowan's desk, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, nothing really beats him yelling at all of these girls. You are all despicable little liars.
The teacher's like, can I speak to you outside, please?
We don't yell at little girls. So, Sean, in the remake, what Nicolas Cage does is imagine Nicolas Cage at, his usual 11 or 12 doing this kind of thing, but then punching the school teacher in the face or something like that.
Yeah. Well, he punches a lot of people. To the remake's credit, we do have that happen in this movie during the climax. But
yes,
it's just he's running around in a bear suit instead of a punch suit, and it's just I don't know, man. It's like Lily Sobieski just gets like punched across the room and hits a wall. Like it is wild.
Yeah, he kicks somebody in the stomach, runs them over with a bicycle. It's a lot. It's everything about this movie without any kind of subtext. It's just all text at about a 12.
Yeah. And Neil LaBute did not write that, correct?
He did write it.
He did write
it. Oh, well then, of course, yeah.
It's PG-13. I think that's a big mistake there because I think Neil LaBute, you just need to let him kind of go hog wild. But yeah, like Neil LaBute,
misogyny for sure.
He's on record as saying, like I didn't think that the first one was untouchable. Like it's a good film, but I thought some of the execution was really poorly done. And I think that would maybe I would buy into that more if his movie wasn't so bad. But yeah, and he and Cage maintained that the comedy in their film was intentional. But
no, it's camp. It is absolute unintentional camp.
I'm not anti-remake, but as soon as a writer-director says something about the previous film, not being perfect or... Because, films aren't perfect, but if you're looking at this film like, oh, I can do that better.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, that's like, no, thank you. It's the people that are like, oh, this is really fertile ground to explore in a different way. Those are the remakes that I'm like The Blob or like the Dawn of the Dead remake. Like those are people that have reverence for the original material and also have other ideas that they feel like fit in. So, screw Neil LaBute.
I would still recommend watching that remake though, just to, since the original is so fresh on your mind, just to see what it is, so you can say, I've seen that thing.
I'll force that onto my husband. We'll do that.
I will say, I think gender flipping and making the island entirely populated by women and having Summer Isle a female character, like it does introduce some what could have been nuance, complexities, and interrogations. But I would argue that LaBute really fumbles that. Like that is one of the failures of the remake.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's I forgot about the gender thing on the island because I think a lot of the men don't speak.
Yeah, like it's basically Nick Cage versus the women.
Yeah, that's 100%. But that's very Neil LaBute, isn't it? Battle of the Sexes.
Yes.
Well, Neil LaBute hates women. I mean, I'm not kidding.
We're not even joking. Women. It's not like a joke. That is a real fact.
People. He hates women. I mean, he's a Mormon or a former Mormon, and the whole world is going to pay for that. And so everything that he does, he writes plays about gay sexual assault by straight guys and treating women terribly and treating fat women terribly. Like, I trust him with no one,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
So I can imagine him saying, "Oh, let's make the whole island all women," and then Nicolas Cage can punch even more women. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Even more people that we can put into positions of, yeah. Okay, coming back to this much better film from 1973. So Howie demands to look at the class ledger. This is what allows him to confirm that, of course, Rowan was actually a student. And yes, he calls them all liars. This is when Miss Rose asks, "Can I talk to you outside?" And she tries to elaborate, you know, and I love this level of subterfuge because I find her very convincing, at least here. Like when she's singing a duet with Summer Isle later, you're like, oh, you're in on it. You're bad. Here she says, well, we're not trying to deceive you. It's just that Rowan is dead. And because this island isn't Christian, we believe in reincarnation and not resurrection. So that's why our answers to your questions don't seem to satisfy, because we just have completely different religious beliefs. And this doesn't land for him, but as a first time watch, I would say, oh, interesting. Okay, so we're actually doing contradictory religious doctrines.
We are. And I do like the touch because she says they don't use the word dead. And when she says that, she won't even say the word dead out loud. She just mouths it. So I love that as a ritual with these people too, or like a tradition with these people where it's like, yeah, they like even saying the word dead is like, what, a bad omen of sorts?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because the island is already dying. That's why it didn't have the crop. So they're I think a little superstitious about this idea because they want it to be treated like a cycle. We can fix this, as opposed to dead is there's a level of finality to it.
I wonder though, now knowing what we do about how often they've actually sacrificed someone, is that truly part of their belief, or is that another piece of the antagonism puzzle to get him to solve the mystery to his own detriment, if that makes sense? Like, if you take out the fact that they're not actually sacrificing somebody every year, does this contextualizing someone's death as reincarnation versus, you know, I don't know. It feels like now that's actually another lie.
Well, because the thing is, it is a lie, because they all know that Rowan is not dead, even like in their version of death. Like they know she's alive. So
exactly.
This is just more of them fucking with him.
Right. It's like, it's not them using, you know, the best lie is 99% true.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering, is that this case? Like, yes, they believe this, but they're trying to use this belief to make him think that they're sacrificing someone, or is it all a lie?
No, I think it's that middle one, because that's what Samurai will say at the end. You know, the game of the hunted leading the hunter. Like we've been playing. Oh, that was something too that Hardy did. I didn't include this anecdote, but basically, like the screenwriter Schaefer, he was like a prankster. Basically, like he would always play games and pranks with his brother and with Hardy. Like at one point, they were filming a movie in Sicily, and Hardy was like, "Hey, I want to take my wife to a nice dinner. Can you tell me somewhere to go?" And he sent him to this hotel, but it was like, oh, they were having some German battalion World War II reunion at this hotel. So he's like, yeah. So he's like, they played games. And the reason I bring this up, the reason this is relevant to the Wicker Man is because the Wicker Man script is in and of itself one big game.
Right. Yeah. And we refer to it within the world of the film. Like we've been playing games. We've been pranking you. We've been lying to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this is when Howie... Okay, so he is now under the impression that Rowan is not missing. She is now dead, so he's going to start looking for signs of her death. So he goes to the church graveyard. This is where he sees a woman breastfeeding in public, which... Oh my God.
I mean, we still have a problem with this today.
You know what? That is fair. That's, accurate, unfortunately. He discovers Rowan's gravesite with a 6 to 7 month old tree planted in it. And this is part of that reincarnation philosophy, right? So from someone's death, we will bring new life in the form of an apple tree, which will continue to provide sustenance to the island and so on. He interacts with a...
Go ahead.
He interacts with a grave digger who is played by Aubrey Morris. And this is a baffling piece that I feel like we don't make enough of in the movie. So we can see that there's something dangling off of this, you know, immature tree. And the gravedigger confirms that it is the girl's navel string, as in like a piece of her intestines, I guess?
No, it's the umbilical cord.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, he laughs when Howie is like, I want to speak to your minister. Because, of course, we're not Christian. We don't have a fucking minister.
I mean, I love when he asks, what's that tree? Oh, that's a rowan.
I'm remembering now also in one of the, is it maybe in Christopher Lee's home, there's body parts in jars or something? And there's one
a
labeled
jar of
foreskin.
foreskin.
Yes.
Oh.
So that's actually the next space. So he'll go to the registrar's office to look for the death certificate. And in that space, we have a bunch of jars of just different body parts, including, yes, one marked foreskin.
As you do.
As you do, yes. I will say I love the repeated reiteration every time Howie's like, I want this. I want access to that document. I want to learn this information. And everyone says, well, you have to get permission from Lord Summerisle. So we're teasing the arrival of Christopher Lee if you're watching the cut that hasn't already introduced him. But just this pushing back against outside authority, right? Because Howie will just keep saying, I'm a police officer. This is the rule of the law. I'm a Christian. You need to answer to me. You need to listen to me. And all these people just go, you have no jurisdiction here.
Can I circle back to the foreskins for a second?
Absolutely.
I just remembered something or realized something.
Mm-hmm.
This is set in Scotland, aka the UK. They don't circumcise their children there. So if on this island they are circumcising their children, that's another way that this film is signaling that these folks are terrible and evil.
Because they circumcise their boys?
Right. I mean, I'm not saying I'm just reflecting the film.
No, for sure. Absolutely. I get it. Yeah.
It goes against the popular discourse or the popular approach.
Certainly in Europe, right? But it means something completely different when it's distributed in the United States.
No, I know. I always feel so bad because I've had I've had times where I've talked to someone overseas and someone I was going to hook up with, and they've been like, oh, but just so you know, I'm not circumcised. And I was like, yeah, that's great. Why? Well, I've just had bad experiences with people in the States where they that's a real turnoff for them. And I'm just like, oh, that really sucks.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. Yes, and.
It's just,
and that's terrible.
It's, that's my soapbox, everyone. Embrace the foreskin.
Or, yeah, I mean, I guess if we have Jewish listeners who didn't have control over that because that is a part of their religion, then don't hold that against them either.
Hey, I'm Catholic and I was circumcised. That just is what it is. But I think because I don't have foreskin, I really do like foreskin. And maybe it's because I have this secret wish, because I was like, oh, I wish I wasn't circumcised so I could have foreskin. So I seek out partners that aren't circumcised. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, sorry for that tangent.
This is some great intel.
Everybody, I hope you enjoyed your lunch hour with Trace talking about this.
Hey, that implies that foreskin will make you vomit. And that should not be the case.
I just meant more people may be eating and not wanting to talk about it. So
yeah, that's true. Well, you know what? There you go.
Okay. Our next stop on this island circuit is chemist and photographer Mr. Lennox, who is played by Donald Eccles. And we are there looking for the 1972 harvest year photograph because, remember, it was missing off of the wall of the pub. And he basically says, oh, I don't know anything about it. And I definitely don't have a negative in my basement, so don't go looking there later. So it's finally time to go to Lord Summerisle's castle. It's definitely the biggest place on this island.
Of course it is.
But I think at this point we're meant to assume that Howie is sick and tired of being told that he needs to get the permission of the person who rules the whole place. So off we go. But en route we do see that group of naked women jumping naked over a bonfire. This is where we get the what I call flame/baby song.
It's called Fire Leap.
There we go. So we are about 40 minutes into this cut of the film, and this is when we are finally introduced to Christopher Lee with his gorgeous, frothy, wind gusty hair. It kind of makes him look a bit like a mad scientist, and I loved it.
And every image I've ever seen of him is his hair slicked back in some way. And so seeing that, I'm like, wow, that's very of the time. So I'm sure it wasn't, shocking to anyone, but to see that, I'm like, Christopher Lee's a mod.
It is the most attractive I found Christopher Lee, actually, and the hair is a big reason why.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's a great head of hair. Mm-hmm. So, we are here to request permission to exhume Rowan's body because, remember, we found her gravesite. She's definitely dead. She's not going to be sacrificed, but no one seems to know how she died because there's no death certificate and nobody will give him any fucking answer. So, he wants to exhume the body, take it back to the mainland. I'm going to bring Lakshmanan back in here. So, they say, when Howie seems disturbed, like he's trying to suppress an inappropriate reaction to this maiden's... Oh, sorry. This is back in response to the women jumping over the fire.
Right.
So Howie seems disturbed by this, like he's trying to suppress this inappropriate reaction. But Summer Isle is like totally blasé about this. And you could argue it's because they do this maybe every year for May Day. But it could also be that he's actually just more titillated by Howie's flustered reaction to them than he is by their naked bodies. Because, of course, the reading here is that Summer Isle is more attracted to Howie because he's lured him here. He's excited to actually get to interact with him finally. He's not just, standing out the window looking at him and talking about, snails fucking.
Well, because this fire ritual, it seems to be, I put in my notes, I don't know if this is actually true what's happening here, but it seems like a fertility ritual.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And Howie at one point says, but they're naked. And Summer Isle says, well, yes, it would be too dangerous to jump over a fire with your clothes on.
I love the rationale there.
We love a practical king. I mean, it made sense to me.
Well, and again, continuing this conversation where we're arguing religions, and he's like, sir, have these children never heard of Jesus? And Summer Isle's reply is, oh, himself the son of a virgin impregnated, I believe, by a ghost.
Yeah. I was actually confused at this moment also. Were the naked women jumping over the fire, were those her students that we just saw in the classroom, her underage students?
No.
They looked older to me.
I didn't think so either, but the version, this super illegal Russian version that I saw on this dark web website, it was a little grainy, and so I couldn't see the faces really of these
I think
actors,
they are the other, I think either barely legal or early 20-something daughters. Like, one of the women here is going to be revealed to be the woman with the hair, not I-R, it's R-E, the hair mask that they say, oh, she got chopped, and then we pull off the mask. So that's one of these women.
Right.
We don't really introduce a huge group of secondary characters. Like, half the time you're just like, oh, that guy, I think I've recognized him in the background of other things. So the movie only really cares about a couple people.
But something that Hardy does say in one of these featurettes, though, he says that this movie has this radical idea that religion isn't really based on faith, but whatever society's norm is at the time. Because you grow up and you go through the motions of these things, whether it's going to communion if you're a Catholic or dancing around the maypole if you're a pagan.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And it just seems like that concept alone is just too much for some people in today's, well, actually in any age, I guess, to really accept.
Yeah.
I think in the context of this film, it is difficult to make the leap that this village/island would be so happily on board with sacrificing a human if it hasn't really happened in their lifetime. Because that's not the norm, right? This is a new thing.
But if it's in all your books, it's like, yes, like the goddess Mother Earth always gives us crops. But if she doesn't, we have this other ritual we do with the Wicker Man. If you're raised with that's what we always do, then the idea of sacrificing someone, whoever they are, isn't going to seem that out of the ordinary to you.
Yeah. I mean, I get the mechanics of it. I guess I'm just putting myself in that situation.
I think we'd all love to think, okay, we would not just commit murder because somebody said, well, if the crops fail, this is what you got to do. But yeah, I guess if you've been raised, almost indoctrinated into this belief system and you've never seen it before, and it's like, oh, well, we've never had to do it before because everything has always been so plentiful. But yeah, push has really come to shove here. And the myth has got to be enacted.
But remember, this is also isn't murder to them because even their view of death, oh, he's just going to be part of the earth. Right. He'll eventually become a tree and then he'll be reborn as something. So yeah, exactly.
Right.
So in their minds, no matter what, none of this is murder. That is not what any of this is. They're just advancing him into the next stage of his life.
True.
Right. And actually, Summer Isle says something to the same extent because he is unconcerned because he doesn't believe that they commit murders here. They're deeply religious. And it's a bit of a moment of comedy, especially because it's being delivered by Christopher Lee with his you know, at this point, we know who Christopher Lee is. Even in 73, it's like, oh my God, the guy who played Dracula is trying to say, we don't commit murders here. We're deeply religious.
Yeah.
So he does bring that air of sort of threatening, but also very like, but maybe I'll fuck you, or maybe I'll bite you, or maybe you'll enjoy it, even if terrible things are going to happen to you.
But at the same time, though, I would love to have like a Summer Isle and all these people have a rational conversation with someone who isn't judging every single one of their movements and decisions to say, okay, well, hey, you say you're not committing murder, but you are causing someone to die here, although you can't say that because they don't use the word die or death.
It's foolproof.
But I guess I would, they have their own loophole. But I guess they'd be like, okay, so what constitutes as murder for them then? What is murder for them?
I don't think it's part of their philosophy. Murders don't happen on the island because of their religion.
Well, I would say they would categorize somebody actually murdering somebody out of anger as murder.
Well, see, though, I guess for me, I'm thinking, well, if you're murdering someone, you're doing it for a reason, usually a selfish reason to get something out of it. Or, yeah, it could just be flat out hate. But I guess I would argue, well, then what you're doing with this sacrifice, aren't you doing, you're quote unquote killing someone, causing them to die for your own benefit. So that but for someone, that could be the definition of murder as well.
I think in that context, there's an element of the greater good involved.
Yeah, it's communal.
Versus like, I hate you, or, you know, we've had an argument and I shoot you.
Yeah.
I think that's, again, intention versus impact.
Yeah.
The greater good.
I mean, I think there's another version of this movie where maybe Howie inadvertently kills somebody in his quest to find Rowan or to protect and save her, right? And it would be interesting to see how they reacted to that. Would they say, oh, okay, well, this person's not really dead because, again, we'll just plant them, you know, a tree over top of their grave and they'll be fine.
Right.
Or would they say, oh, no, this person came to our island and hurt us and they don't subscribe to our beliefs, so they did commit a murder.
I don't think they would ever do that, though. I do think that they would hold to their doctrine.
Yeah.
I think you can be guilty of murder and the person you murder doesn't die. I think in there, like, if I'm an innocent victim that gets stabbed to death, I didn't die. I'm being, you know, reborn, or however they phrase it. But the person who stabbed me is guilty of
held
something.
accountable.
Right.
Well, that's where the intent versus impact. The intent is to murder. The impact is reincarnation.
Right. Okay, I'm going to encourage us to move on because we still have lots of things to talk about.
I love these deep philosophical conversations.
Okay, so after Howie basically says, like, you know, how can you believe this? We've got God and all this other stuff. And Summer Isle explains, well, no, the true God is dead. And he gets called heathen. So it's an interesting philosophical debate, much like the one we just finished having, where Howie is so convinced that because they don't have specifically Christianity, that must mean that they are heathens. And of course, Summer Isle says, no, we're pagans. We have a different religion, one that you don't subscribe to, but it's different in the way that we worship the earth. We've got a sun and a water goddess, and, you know, we do all these different things, but we're still deeply religious. And there's that intolerance that Howie can just not accept this. So no, you're not Christians, therefore you're heathens.
Yeah, he brought you up to be a pagan. I do, again, Summer Isle's retort to this is like a heathen conceivably, but not, I hope, an unenlightened one. Which, again, I think in his mind, it's like, well, I'd rather be an enlightened heathen than an unenlightened Christian.
Right, yeah. Because that's how Howie comes off the whole time. It's like, well, you don't subscribe to my beliefs, and therefore you are wrong. And you're just like, oh, that's an extreme level of intolerance you have, sir.
Mm-hmm. And again, all this is kind of based around the fact of like, well, who's right? No one knows. And no one ever really, really challenges Howie to that, you know, where it's like, well, how do you know your doctrine is quote unquote the correct one?
Yeah. I love that they just make fun of him and then they're like, well, we're going to burn you alive at the end of this. So have at it, sir.
There's something about the fact that narratively, they don't give him Howie, a moment to question or be weak. And so, which makes, again, it harder for me to buy him as the protagonist because he doesn't grow and doesn't change. And so, again, this, you know, not everything has to add up dramaturgically, but it does, again, make him very uninteresting by this point in the film because you know exactly what his reaction is going to be every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And, you know, if he had like, if it felt like Britt Ekland's naked wall dance had actually tempted him in a way. I think like that would have been a great moment for us to see just a little like question behind his eyes. But as it stands, we're just sort of waiting for him to get his.
Yeah. Okay, so we exhumed the body, but the body inside of this coffin is not Rowan. It's not a little girl. It is, in fact, a hare, which I thought was amusing because it reminded me that that's exactly what Myrtle said he was going to find. So she didn't lie to him. And then this is when Howie storms back to Summer Isles' mansion, and he finds Miss Rose duetting with Summer Isle. And I think in a conventional read of the film, you would assume that the two of them are fucking. They have some kind of sexual liaison. But in fact, we never actually see them do anything more than this duet. So I can still subscribe to my idea that Summer Isle is in fact queer.
All right. I mean, put him behind a piano. Sure.
Right? It's like a little ditty. Yeah.
There is a moment. Is it in this one or is it in the previous scene where the teacher, I can never remember anybody's name, but
Miss Rose.
Miss Rose. She's drinking out of the goblet, and there's a very purposeful shot of her sort of raising the goblet to the camera and then taking a sip, looking directly at us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that felt like it meant something, although it doesn't really pay off in any way, but it just felt very purposeful to me.
It felt like she was teasing him and maybe acknowledging the audience that there is something else going on, because he's still being incredibly belligerent about everything here. Like, he's basically saying, you're a teacher and, you're the person who owns this island. We jumped over it, but we got the whole backstory about how Summer Isle inherited this island and, the crops were failing. And then we basically turned to paganism and all of a sudden everything was flourishing. And that's why we do the things that we do. But, here, I do love where there's a moment where Howie kind of says, well, like, what is going on here? Why won't people tell me the truth? And Summer Isle just goes, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were the detective.
Such a great moment.
So that puts him spinning, right? Where he says, okay, well, this is what I think happens. Rowan was murdered by this pagan barbarity and he wants a full inquiry. That's why he's going to take the body tomorrow. And Summer Isle just says, okay, well, it's probably good that you're going to take it and go because tomorrow is our May Day celebrations and you definitely would not want to be here for that. Definitely baiting the hook as well.
Right.
So we go back to Lennox's basement. This is where we discover photographic proof that, yes, the crops did fail last year. We also get a picture confirming that Rowan was the May Queen the previous year. And this is then when we get to the moment, the pièce de résistance. I think the other thing, apart from the Wicker Man effigy burning at the end of the film, this is what people remember of this movie, which is Britt Ekland's naked dance against the wall as Willow basically tries to entice Howie to come and fuck her.
And this is a full musical number where it's like, oh, this would be in a musical, like a stage production. Like it's the diegetic singing. And again, her breasts are her, but she told,
but not the butt.
She told Robin Hardy, and I quote, she has a ski slope ass and did not feel comfortable showing it. And so basically they filmed all of her front stuff and like the song and whatever, but every shot where it's like her writhing against the wall shot from behind, that is a double that was brought in that she was not aware of. So when she did finally see the film in theater, she was like, what's going on here? Yeah.
Well, that's disappointing, but I will say, I mean, this sequence is an absolute banger. Literally, she's banging against the wall, and I just think it's so visually evocative. Like, the sequence ends when she finishes singing. Obviously, he has not succumbed, but he is sweating. He has been trying to pray his way through this experience because he is so tempted. And I just think it's kind of dynamic storytelling without any actual dialogue. Like, we've got a song, sure. And the song is very much like, why won't you just come over here and fuck me? But I kind of love that we can do this temptation thing and just finish it up with him sweating profusely. Like, whew, barely survived that one.
Because that's the other thing, too. He's probably also never masturbated in his life because that's also considered a sin in the Christian faith.
He's so pent up.
Yeah, I loved how this was shot because it really is just leaning into the visual language of this film. And in a film that... it earns this moment, but it still feels like, wait, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, it feels very unexpected. It feels very out of sorts, but there's other things in the film that aren't exactly like this that support this choice. And it's such a bold choice. And I can see, sadly, we went to see The Bride last night, and there was, of course, dumb people in the audience laughing at the parts they weren't supposed to laugh at. I mean, The Bride does have a lot of humor in it. And I could just see this movie playing now in a movie theater, and people that don't have any sort of media literacy just seeing this moment and just like rolling. And it is humorous. I also think it is shot to be funny on a level.
But there's a difference between laughing at a movie and laughing with the movie.
Right.
This is something I host Terror Tuesday and Weird Wednesday screenings at the Draft House every week. And whenever I'm showing a film where I'm like, I know this is going to play a certain way, in my introduction, I'm always like, hey, y'all, this is the intention behind this. Because I remember, I think, Joe, I told you this last time, but when I showed David Cronenberg's Crash, I don't think I primed people enough because there was so much laughter at like the wrong parts of the movie, and I felt so disappointed in my crew by that point. I was like, no, y'all, like that's not what you're supposed to be laughing at, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because obviously we don't want to suggest that there's only one proper way to read a movie, but I think it's also very obvious when a movie is not doing something for laughs and you're laughing at it, then yeah, maybe it's veering into Wicker Man remake territory and it's unintentionally campy. But I think sometimes you're right, Sean, it does feel more like, oh, is it that you're uncomfortable and your response is to laugh instead of try to process what you're feeling? Or is it that you just don't really understand what's happening on the screen right now?
Yeah. If you don't allow yourself to be part of, film is pretty passive as versus like theater, which is a very active, it requires a very active audience. Film can be completely passive. So you have to choose to be part of it. So you have to choose to let yourself be like pulled into the world of a film. And if a film from 1972 or 73 is on the screens in 2026 and you've got, 21-year-olds in the audience, everything in front of their eyeballs is out of context for them and it's nothing they've experienced before. So to ask them to just like step into this world is a big lift, and
it's a total challenge.
Yeah.
It's tricky, right? I mean, I'm sure all of us have experienced something where trying to get people of a certain age or generation to watch a silent film, a black and white film, a foreign film, like these are hurdles. And I think part of it is that we have to go into film being curious enough to not just engage with it, but try to understand it at its level and also its context, right?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. I live in Los Angeles and it's a company town. So everybody here is sort of primed. I
was going to say, you've got a pretty media literate group of people there.
Yeah. But yes, definitely I've been in other places where that is not the case.
Okay, so I do also love the contrast between we go directly from this temptation scene separated by the wall to the next morning where clearly if she wanted to, Willow could have just come into his room because she does it in the morning. She's now fully clothed, but she's delivering breakfast to him. Not exactly pretending like nothing happened because she does say, hey, did you hear me last night? I was inviting you to come over. And he just kind of goes, ooh.
Well, I think this is the first confirmation that we get that Howie is a virgin.
Right. Yes. He admits that he is engaged to be married, but he has not had sex because he waits for marriage.
Which I love that we wait to the reveal here. Because again, we're about to get into the whole like the ritual soon. And so this should be your big clue where it's like, oh
shit. Yeah. What do we say? Oh, Trace, it was a recent film, maybe on Patreon, but it was like, it was Under the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, our audio commentary for the month. If you find yourself in a group with a virgin, run
away.
Just don't be around virgins. You're safe in a horror movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so Howie decides he's going to go to the library, and we should note that the librarian is played by the Vampire Lovers' Ingrid Pitt. So that's our second connection to the Vampire Lovers in this single film, because of course they're basically from the same era. But he researches May Day celebrations, which includes things like the community leader doing drag, as well as a punch character. So, of course, to American listeners, this probably doesn't mean quite as much, but in the UK, this famous tradition of Punch and Judy. But Punch is a privileged simpleton. It's a fool. It's an idiot.
I will say I learned who Punch and Judy were when I was reading Gone Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because the puppets.
Yeah, exactly. So in bad years, a sacrifice would be made for good crops, and it was a human being. So this is, gonna shake him to his core, because all of a sudden now we start to wonder, well, maybe Rowan isn't actually dead. Never found the body, never found the death certificate, so maybe she's going to be sacrificed.
Yeah, she's being prepared for sacrifice. I forgot about the whole, the leader of the island has to cross-dress, basically, during the ritual. And I honed in on that in this research scene, and I was like, wait, is Christopher Lee going to be in drag for the climax of this movie? And
Correct.
he is!
He is!
Correct,
He is.
yeah.
I'd love to do a supercut of movies where a big chunk of the mystery is solved by a page from a local newspaper.
Right?
This is your microfiche sequence, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what this scene is.
Yeah, the island doesn't quite have the technology for microfiche, so we do just have to use old brick and mortar books. But yeah, love it. Love a research scene, always and forever. So Howie believes that he has got what he needs, so he's going to try to leave. He discovers almost immediately that his plane will not start, so he has to go back onto the island. I love this false start. Usually this is the point where I say, oh, just cut this. You don't need it. Like, just get into the action. But I do love that he understands, I should try to leave because I'm not going to get any further with these islanders. But the fact is no, your escape route has been cut off, and now you are stuck here for Mayday. Mm-hmm. So he ends up following a character named Oak, who is played by Ian Campbell. This is one of the larger guys, and he is now outfitted in this kind of hoop skirt with the horse head, and he basically just leads Howie around town. It's an almost chase style down the back alley kind of sequence, and I quite like it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just trying to keep him busy while they're setting up everything, right? That's what
literally
this is.
that. Yeah. And then during this time, we actually overhear Lord Summer Isle outlining the timeline for the day. So, okay, the procession is going to start at this time. We're going to go down to the beach, and then we're going to go to the ceremonial place and so on. So that helps us as an audience, but also Howie. Okay, this is how the rest of the film is going to unfold. So he tries to make one final plea with May. So this is the owner of the post office / confectionery, but she only responds, "You'll simply never understand the true nature of sacrifice," which,
chilling,
ma'am.
He's about to.
Yes. He spends the rest of the day going door to door, looking for Rowan, convinced that she is being hidden somewhere on the island, and all he ends up finding are kids who are pranking him, as well as all of the costumes that the adults will wear.
Is this where we see May putting a frog in her daughter's mouth to cure her of the cold?
That's earlier in the film, actually, but I did love that. Again, that's one of the, because it's not quite a montage of scenes, but it's basically when Howie's running around the town and he's seeing a bunch of things that shock him. And yeah, this is one big one where she puts a toad in her daughter's mouth to absorb her sore throat.
Yeah. In addition to walking in on a half-naked lady who's just in the bath.
I thought that was Miss Rose.
It might be Miss Rose, or it might be one of these other random blonde women. They all blend together in this.
One of these women that were like jumping over the bonfire in that fertility ritual.
Exactly.
I was having a hard time tracking them, and if I'm not incorrect, I think Ingrid Pitt has almost nothing to do in this film, correct?
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, I think she's in more than just this one scene where he goes to the library, but it's not a significant role, which is super unfortunate. Folks, we talked about The Vampire Lovers on the pod. That is one of those essential queer horror texts. If you have not seen it, you are missing out on a key piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, also with this going this nudity in the bathtub too, one of these critics on the featurettes on the Blu-ray says the culture of the island is very sexually open, and the women are very empowered by their sexuality. It challenged the stereotypes of movies in the same way it challenges Howie's religious beliefs, because you just didn't see that type of thing in movies at the time. It shows how women could use their sexuality as a force against men. It's a more sophisticated representation. It's different from the use of nudity in some of those Hammer films, where it was more.
Boy, we're just really coming down on Hammer.
Yeah. In truth, I don't think that Christopher Lee has bad experience with Hammer. I think he was just ready to be done.
I think it's also just they were the equivalent of like a Blumhouse to us, right? They were very pervasive, but people said, "Oh, well, there's something else. You know, we don't have to just do that. We can do things differently, maybe in a slightly more sophisticated manner." But yeah. Okay, so he ends up back at the Green Man Inn, and this is where, like, at this point, he is overwhelmed. He's tired. He feels like he's getting nowhere. So
he's going to take a nap.
Well, he takes a glass
minutes.
of whiskey. Yeah, and then a quickie little nap. You know, just rest my eyes. I'm going to refresh and get ready for the procession later. This is where he overhears Willow and McGregor discussing him, like basically saying, okay, we just need to keep him knocked out so that we can proceed with what we want to do. And obviously he thinks they're talking about sacrificing Rowan. Obviously this is all a performance for his benefit. And then they try to drug him with a candle in the shape of a hand where each finger is a wick. And I loved it.
It's called the Hand of Glory, and it's supposed to make him sleep, but this is bizarre.
I thought they had drugged him with the whiskey. Like the way they were talking, it seemed like he was, and then I thought he was paralyzed because he was laying there with his eyes wide open, and why, it just felt like maybe they'd given him something to paralyze him, and that's what the wicker hand was about. But then he just jumps up and knocks over the wicker hand candle. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, because I think he's just standing there frozen because he's like, they still need to think that I'm asleep or something. He doesn't want to alert them to his awakeness.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks he's being so clever. Ooh, I've got the upper hand on them because they don't know I'm awake. Bitch, come on. You've been played the entire 3 days on the island.
And they're having conversation at the top of the stairs, right outside his room.
Outside of his room.
And that's what you say. Yeah, this is all a performance for him. They know he can hear him.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. The whole thing, if you reflect on it, every single interaction he has had with anybody since arriving on the island has just been a staged performance for his benefit. It's so wild. The longest con, the hardest con.
True.
Okay, so he ends up punching out McGregor, and he puts on his punch costume. So he is now the fool.
You mean he punches punch?
He does indeed. Yes. So then he ends up joining the procession, which features girls at the front, 6 boys sparring with sabers, as well as Summer Isle in a purple dress and long black wig.
It's a very Cher wig.
It's a very Cher wig, yes.
Mm-hmm. And just an interesting sort of, just a piece of sort of queerness that is just accepted, which I thought was interesting. Like, there's not a big deal made out of it. It's also, I don't know, I mean, maybe this is the gay in me, but if you're going to do drag for your pagan, sacrifice ceremony, are you just going to wear a plain summer dress?
Right.
Sundress over pants? Like, come on.
Yeah, it is a thing though, because we, outside of the queer readings you've been doing throughout this episode, Joe, like we don't have like an explicit mention of what these people believe about queerness. And granted, that could also just be the time. It's 1974. You're not going to put that in. I was going to say a mainstream movie, but a movie. But it is something that I would be curious to know what these islanders, like what their view on queerness is.
Yeah, I can bring Lakshmanan back in here. It's not necessarily cemented within the world of the film, but this is how some people have read this, cross-dressing or drag-ish performance. So Lakshmanan says, in the religious procession preceding Howie's death, he plays the role of the Betsy, or sinister teaser, an androgynous character traditionally played by the community leader or priest, and described as a man woman who straddles the boundaries of gender. As a leader, priest, and man woman, Summer Isle dances between the women who run ahead and the men who follow behind. So he's representing both the Earth Mother and the Sun Father to whom Howie will be sacrificed.
I didn't even think about the placement. Yeah, so he's like bridging the gap between gender.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fascinating. I mean, there's also, a lot of religions in their ceremony have something that is close to a dress, like the Catholic Church, for instance, like the robes and everything. So it's interesting that there's a commonality despite the gulf between them.
Yeah, you just take off the wig, let him have his normal hair, and he just looks like a priest.
It's a tweaked version, but you're right, Sean. I mean, this is not exclusive to Christianity or this pagan group that we're seeing on film. Like, the weird thing is that we only say it's weird and different when we don't subscribe to it.
I just love that, because I can look at this and be like, this is really weird, but it's like, this isn't weird to these people. And if I was still a practicing Catholic, a lot of my rituals would be very weird to them. And I think, I love that. I just get stuck in a rabbit hole thinking about that.
Yeah. And how we could celebrate how, it's different but the same, but instead we just decry it and say, no, too foreign, can't handle it.
Well, the number of wars fought over religion.
All of them? Most of them?
A lot of them, yeah.
The current one? Oops, who said that? Yeah. Okay, so we should note that the editing gets more frenetic because Howie is actually made to get into this routine. So he is technically a participant in this procession, but he's doing a shit job of it. And Summer Isle is like, dance, get into it, let's go. I love that his response is, he's going to smack these ladies on the bottom with his like little staffy probey thing. So when they arrive at the ceremonial point with, I don't know what to call these. I put rocky monoliths that kind of look like Easter Island.
Oh, yeah. I said it was like Stonehenge.
Same.
Okay. So we should note, like, we keep saying that this is a pagan society. I think they actually declare that they are Celtic in the movie. So.
Okay.
Because I think also anybody who watches like Outlander is going to say, that kind of looks like that. So everyone ends up taking a turn within the pentagram sword thing that these 6 guys with their sabers create. And this is when everybody's going, chop, chop.
I will say, I thought they did legit cut off the head of one of these people.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
And they imply it because Summer Isle, makes Howie get in line. He's like, it's random.
But everybody has to go through it.
But like, not everybody has a fake head on their shoulders. So
yes,
if you don't do that, do you get your head cut off?
Well, and that's the other thing too, where it's like, okay, well, why wasn't this person killed as a form of sacrifice?
Yeah.
But we're not privy to that information.
Right. I guess if in retrospect, again, it's all a performance. So they're trying to scare him and antagonize him.
Yeah.
And they don't actually really cut somebody's head off every year.
No.
Sadly.
This is all just part of the fun and games, right? It's like overdosing on whatever it is that they do at midsummer.
Right.
Okay, so the hair is ultimately the one who gets chopped, but it's revealed not to be Rowan. It's actually Holly Grimmond, who is played by Fiona Kennedy. And then down the beach, this is where Summer Isle cuts into a barrel of ale for the goddess of the sea. And then we need to move on to our more dreadful sacrifice. So this is when Rowan appears up on the cliffs and how he springs into action. So he runs up there, he punches this dude in the face.
Oh,
he
so good.
grabs Rowan. We're fleeing through the cave system with people following us, and it's all very tense and exciting. And then we find a descent-like passage where we climb out onto the top. We're at the top of the cliffs, and it's very scary and jagged. And oops, the ruse is revealed because Summer Isle and a bunch of people are already waiting for them. All the other islanders are up on the top surrounding him. There is no escape.
And the line that Summer Isle greets him with, "Welcome, fool. You have come of your own free will to the appointed place. The game is over."
Yes,
Woo!
we have controlled your every thought and action. And in hindsight, correct. Mm-hmm.
And so satisfying, even knowing the ending. It was so satisfying to watch everybody. They're like, "You dumbass.
Yep.
You did this to yourself."
And because we haven't really talked a ton about Woodward's performance here, but I do think he really gets to flex his muscles a lot in these scenes where he realizes what's happening to him, but I think he doesn't fully believe, they're actually going to kill him yet. And it's funny to watch him go through all these stages of like anger and rage. It's kind of like the 5 stages of grief, right? Like to denial, to bargaining, to acceptance. Whoo, boy. Oh, it's
to
good.
Cursing. He curses them. Like,
Yeah,
all to hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it, again, 1972 movie pace was different, but even today, just the drawn out nature of this, as he's just basically begging for his life and pleading and trying to discuss and knowing that it's just not going to work. It was the one time in the movie where I empathized with him and I was putting myself in his shoes. Like, what if?
And to be clear, like how he... Okay, we can talk about whether he deserves death or not, because I don't think
no one deserves to die this way.
He is not. He's a villain in the sense of. I'm sorry, he's an antagonist in the sense that he's not open-minded. Like that's his biggest sin.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
They lured him there, right, under false pretenses. So that's why he doesn't deserve it, and that would be the thing that would make Summer Isle the antagonist. because the whole journey was based on a falsehood. So...
Yeah, because it's a bit of a fiction when Summer Isle says, we've been waiting for the right person to come because we need a human being to sacrifice because the crops failed, and that means it can't be an animal or somebody else. It's got to be like an adult. Virgin, preferably. But it's like, you came here of your own volition. And it's like, well,
did you?
I mean, you brought me here by writing an anonymous letter about a girl who was missing, who was not actually missing.
But hey, he could have just said, I don't know this bitch. I don't know who wrote this to me. This is probably a joke. I'm gonna ignore this. And going back to the remake one final time. So the way the remake adjusts this is that basically they say that once the women of the island achieve a certain age, or once they turn 18 or whatever, they then get essentially a Rumspringa, where they can go to the mainland, and that's where they were supposed to get a man, get impregnated by him, and then go back to the island. And then basically, once that child is Rowan's age, they then lure the man back, saying, hey, I know I haven't seen you in like 10 years, but you got me pregnant.
You're a baby daddy.
You're a baby daddy, and the child's missing. Can you please come help me?
And then they sacrifice him.
And then they sacrifice him. So yeah, it's these women going out to trap men like flies to honey, because they're the bees.
Right. And trap them by offering them something great.
Yeah.
I have a sort of a visceral thing about horror movies that aren't fair. Like, I feel like the Hellraiser movies aren't fair because you're punishing somebody for curiosity. Right? Like Kirsty gets punished because she's curious about a box, and how dare you be curious, and now you're going to have to fight off demons for the rest of your life. And this is sort of not fair because, he's a police officer. He's not going to ignore this note. I mean, they rolled the dice. He could have brought a bunch of people with him, all together, which is kind of a question of why he didn't do that. So as much as he's a tool and all cops are bad, it's tough. It's complicated.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think you're right to have a bit of a pause here because we have, I truly don't know, but I have to assume that the film wanted us to find this character abrasive or maybe unsympathetic or a little unlikable. And I think this is a bit of the heel turn where the movie says, oh, you've been wanting this, but do you really want to see this bad, terrible thing happen to this guy just because, like, he's basically intolerant of other people? And hopefully the answer is no. And that's what makes the ending effective, because I think when we see him go up in flames, we're not meant to celebrate. It's meant to be, oh, fuck, look at this terrible fate this man has received.
That's the change for the audience, not for the islanders. And I think that's why it's really important that the way Hardy shoots the Wicker Man scene is that we are inside that cavity, the chest cavity, with him.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it just lingers, and you really... Now you're being punished, right? Now you're being, as an audience member, you're being punished for sort of wanting this guy's downfall for the previous, however, hour and 20 minutes.
Right.
And now you're getting 10 solid fucking minutes where we don't cut away from him being gruesomely murdered. And it's really uncomfortable. It's not like, yay, they killed the killer in Scream. It's like, ugh.
Yeah. Oh, shit. This is grim.
And I do love, I mean, again, this is Summer Isle being kind of a dick, but he says, we're going to give you what all Christians want, a martyr's death. And it's like, hey, practice what you preach, sister. Let's go. Get in that Wicker Man.
I mean, that's an effective indictment of the Catholic Church for sure.
100%.
Oh, boy. I'm going to pull us back for one moment just before we finish up, because I have one more final element to my queer reading as developed by Lakshmanan. So when Howie is trying to bargain or plead for his life, and he says, what you're doing is you're actually committing murder, and I will not be coming back as a fucking apple, right? Like, I'm not going to come back as your damned apple. The choice of apples, very specific. So apples... fruit,
Adam and Eve.
Obviously a gay slur, but yes, also the source of temptation that gets Adam and Eve kicked out of the, holy garden and so on.
The Garden of Eden, yes.
Garden of Eden, yes. We should know it's also an ancient symbol of romantic love and spiritual knowledge, and specifically within Christianity, yes, the sexual temptation. So it's spherical in shape like breasts and buttocks and the heart. In the novelization, the screenplay, and there's apparently a lost scene in the film, So this does exist in multiple different formats. There was a moment earlier in the movie where Summer Isle actually took Howie to a orchard, and he has him taste of the different specialties of fruit that they grow on the island. So pears, apples, and other things. And he basically describes the fruit while giving it to Howie in a very sensual fashion. And in the novelization, the sergeant actually is embarrassed by this language. So it is, here's the phrase, creamy white flesh, firm, full-flushed, blood-red, bloomed skin with a truly noble, sweet, vinous flavor.
So, you know how I said at the top that when they made the longest cut, the 99-minute director's cut, that Christopher Lee was upset because 15 minutes of shot footage was removed, a big chunk of which was a longer version of the scene where he gives Howie like the background of the island and how he came to be here. That must be what this is.
Either that or another scene that sort of like matches that. Yeah.
There's a vestigial part of that left. If you notice when they're strolling around the grounds, Howie is eating fruit. He's eating something.
There we go.
And they never mention it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that description in my Grindr profile.
Yes.
Bloomed skin. Yes.
Right. Creamy white.
Yeah. Ooh, gosh. Sensuous. Ooh. I guess I just find it interesting that if we do want to read Summer Isle as queer, and this idea that these people don't believe they're committing murder, what they're doing is they're going to reincarnate Howie as a piece of fruit that they would hypothetically consume. Sure, it's a little bit of cannibalism in a way, but it's also Summer Isle finally being able to consume the object of his affection, right? Like, you will be reincarnated as this fruit, and I will finally get to taste you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Okay, so Howie gets stripped, he gets cleaned, he gets put into this white robe. It looks very baptismal, right? Mm-hmm. But of course, we're not thinking about that. We're just thinking, oh God, don't put me into that fucking giant Wicker Man. I do love that when he is at his most vulnerable, as he's being dragged up by Oak, this large man who's very intimidating, the only things that he's saying are like Jesus and oh Lord. Yeah. But like it could be construed as, oh, he's swearing like, oh my God, oh Jesus, oh sweet Lord. But also it sounds like a prayer at the same time.
It does, but it's also kind of like, hey, you know, if you want to know whose God is the right one or whose faith is right. And again, this is something that, again, like a lot of like naysayers against Christianity always say, where it's like, well, if your God is real, why don't you call for help right now before I kill you and see if he comes and helps you? And you could, I guess you could watch this as Howie's version of that, trying to be like calling to his maker, like, help me against these heathens, but no such intervention happens.
He's transitioning from begging them and trying to convince human beings to God, basically, at that point. Yeah. It's interesting because Oak picks him up like he weighs nothing, like to put him in the Wicker, right? Like just picks him up.
I'm also kind of like, I mean, look, it's a Wicker Man. If you like really held your ground, could you not kick a hole through this thing?
Have you tried to kick your way through a basket? It's going to take you a little while. He's still bound when he's in here, by the way. Oh,
that is true. I mean, I guess I'm thinking, like, if you can just jump on a wicker basket, it's going to break apart.
This thing is like 30 feet tall.
They give us so much time to consider how we would escape from that thing, because that is all I was thinking about when I was watching that thing go up. Like, okay, once the flames get close enough, it'll start to weaken, and I can kick out, and then I can jump, and then I'll run and roll. Like,
There's a lot of hypotheticals. It's a lot of, ooh, I hope this all works out for me. I mean, I hear what you're saying because, he, in some ways, he does almost give up, right? Like,
what can you do?
I did think it was interesting, though, that, Summer Isle suggests, well, you are going to die a martyr, which is what you've always wanted. And he does, right? Like, he never recants his faith, so he's still praying when we see this whole fucking thing go up in fire and then begin to collapse. I also love that this thing low-key kind of resembles an ark because we've got a bunch of different animals in different sections.
I'm such an animal fan that hearing the animals' agony as they're being burned together
is upsetting.
It's upsetting, and even kind of more upsetting than the person, honestly.
Because I felt nothing for the human.
Well, because, animals really can't choose, right?
Right.
Well, and it's like, I mean, there's something different about also a human being able to communicate with words and an animal that can't communicate verbally outside of the screams, where it's like there's just something more pathetic and helpless about it that I do find, more empathy for animals that are being tortured than humans that are being tortured, at least in cinema. You know, if you were to put a real human and a real animal in front of me and torture them both, I probably feel equally empathetic. But in a movie, I'm just saying.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Jesus.
Do you still hear them, Howie? The screaming of the animals in the Wicker Man? I will say, not enough credit. We have not given enough credit to Christopher Lee, but his line reading of "It is time to keep your appointment with the Wicker Man."
Oh yeah,
fucking chilling.
I love it too because it's the first time we've mentioned the Wicker Man in this movie, despite the fact that it's the movie's title.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love it. And again, when he sees it, when they go over the hill crest, which I love the shot, but when you see Howie see the Wicker Man, and he's just going, "Oh my God, oh yeah. Jesus Christ!"
When you realize that thing is fucking huge, and I'm going in it, and then you're gonna light it on fire, and this is not Burning Man. We are not just doing a bunch of drugs and lighting that thing on fire. I'm in it.
We are burning a man.
Well. Yes, that is true.
Also, again, fresh eyes. Like people that watched this that didn't know the ending. Like, what is that Wicker Man? What is that all about? Like, you know, I'm not sure anybody would have.
I barely know her.
Right. I don't know if anybody would have had the cultural reference to know that a Wicker Man would be something that you would light on fire in a pagan ceremony like this, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, because even if you saw the poster, you would see the giant Wicker Man, so you would kind of anticipate it's going to come up, but you don't know someone's going to go inside it.
Right.
No.
Or maybe it's going to come alive. You know, like seriously, like, you know, the Brits, they loved their inanimate objects coming to life and killing people. They've made, you know, entire anthology films about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically this movie ends with him dying in this horrible fire, and we will never know whether or not it worked. Did the crops come back? We should note when Howie curses them, he does tell Summer Isle, if this doesn't work, like he basically says, this won't work. And then they're going to come for you next year. And there is a moment, if you want to pause it and like look for Tom Cruise's penis and or Christopher Lee's reaction, he basically has this look of, oh shit, maybe he's right. But he never lets up the ruse to his followers. So I would say that's the only moment when I think Summer Isle truly is uncertain about whether or not they are doing the right thing.
And setting up a sequel that never happened.
Well,
right? There was an attempt.
We do have The Wicker Tree. That is a movie that came out in 2011, but by all accounts, and I remember way back when we covered the remake, Joe, and we had Kat Blackard on, and I believe they were saying like, it's not a good movie, but it's better than the remake.
Oh, so there is an actual sequel? Interesting.
Well, so here's the thing. It's a companion piece that explores the same themes, but it's not like a narrative
It's not
sequel.
Considered a sequel proper.
And Robin Hardy returns, but he does write the screenplay this time. And producer Peter Snell returns. So the screenwriter, Peter Schaefer, does not come back. But yeah, this came out in 2011. It got bad reviews. But if you are curious, it is, the spiritual sequel to The Wicker Man, The Wicker Tree.
Fascinating.
So much homework for everybody to go and now watch all these other tags.
I know. But that is The Wicker Man original flavor. And Sean, first, thank you for coming on to this to talk about this. But as the guest of honor, final thoughts on this film.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. I love being Eiffel Towered by the two of you about this movie.
Oh, my God. We Wicker Manned you. We didn't Eiffel Tower you.
I don't want to call it a lost gem, but it is a fucking gem. Like, it's when you watch films that are, from the 60s, 70s, that you feel like could be put on a screen today without any changes, and the filmmaking would hold up with modern day audiences. That's truly a find. And the 70s, I think, were one of the last great eras of cinema, and so this definitely fits in to that. And yeah, I feel like I often ask people on my podcast, like, where does this go? Like, is this, does this go into the vault? Does it get heavy rotation? And I think this is a newfound heavy rotation, because I think it is a great anchor to 1970s horror before it all changed to 1980s horror, which actually started in like 1978. But this is like a great example of what was happening in horror at the time.
Yeah, I think it's a case where, and this is unfortunate to say, but I just think the reputation of Neil LaBute's remake,
it's watered this down.
It's become a barrier to entry for anyone who might be curious about the original, because I feel like with some of today's audiences, it's like, oh, well, the remake wasn't good, so why would I watch the original?
I think that's more Nicolas Cage, honestly. I adore Nicolas Cage. I love that he always does a big swing in every role that he does. But if you put him into a remake where there's expectations, that's kind of poison. Yeah. Versus something like Mandy or Longlegs, or, just something where we know nothing about this story. And now here's Nicolas Cage, swinging for the fences. I'd lay the blame at his feet more than Neil LaBute's. I haven't even seen the film.
I'm not going to, Sean, whenever you watch that remake, you have to email us and let us know what you thought of it.
Absolutely.
We're looking for immediate reactions.
Okay.
Okay, my final thoughts. This is interesting. I mean, Trace, I think you and I both went into this week saying, oh God, it's going to be a 2-hour plus musical folk horror. And then, yes, we discovered, oh, it's actually not that long. The pacing is really good. The songs are surprisingly catchy. And everything about this movie really works for me. I find it does have a high rewatchability, not just because, oh, you can watch this guy get played and he's a bit of an asshole, so you can kind of cheer for his demise, but also because I think it's a very, very well crafted, the pacing of the film, the way it all comes together, I find very satisfying. And because it's shorter, it doesn't feel cumbersome or a burden to watch or anything. And you can see, honestly, the genesis of so many different other folk horror films or films of this ilk just directly coming back to this movie. So it's a classic for a reason. If people haven't checked it out, I really hope that they did, because I don't think our conversation was great, but also you should watch the movie because it is visually a splendor. So it's really good. Just go out and watch it.
Ditto. So before we announce what we're covering next week, Sean, let everyone know, where can they find you on social media?
Well, I'm Gay of the Dead just about everywhere, including Patreon and Blue Sky, Instagram, grudgingly on TikTok, Facebook, still sticking it out on Twitter, all the different places. And Queer Horror, a Film Guide, the book is available at McFarlandBooks.com, and Queer Horror, a Film Guide, the podcast, is available everywhere.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us on Blue Sky and Instagram at HorrorQueers. Shoot us an email at horrorqueers@gmail.com. Find us on Letterboxd. Keep track of all the films we've covered. If you want to chat with other listeners, please join our HorrorQueers Discord. That link is in the show notes. If you have a moment, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you want even more content, including ad-free main feed episodes, please support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/horrorqueers. If you subscribe today, you'll get 473 hours of Patreon content, including this month's new episodes on Psycho Killer, The Bride, ! Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, Scream 7, a new audio commentary on Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, and our continued coverage of Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House on the Requel tier.
Yeah, we're nearly done. We're coming up on that finale.
Well, and Joe, so speaking of Christian pagan rituals involving Easter,
yes,
what are we talking about next week?
All right, this is a you pick for sure.
Sure
because
is.
I don't have a relationship with Critters 2, the main course from 1988, but you have reassured me that this somehow ties into Easter.
It absolutely does. If you were looking up horror Easter scenes, this movie is in every single listicle.
Okay, I'm excited because I do not understand, so I will find out next week, I guess.
Also, the climax of Critters 2 is just a fucking banger.
Okay.
But anyway, until next time, we can cross out the Wicker Man.
Indeed, cross out horror queers.